is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash those. The smash.
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, "I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source." Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and good evening to you, my fellow patriots, my discerning audience, you wonderful, gorgeous, delectable people. It's wonderful to have your company again. I've missed you, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I really have. You know, I'm a bit of a workaholic, me, and I think I just run myself ragged. Been off for the best part of 2 weeks, but I am back filling in for Mr. Kevin O'Sullivan, who himself is cooling his heels, and I'm going to be keeping you company tonight all the way through till 10 o'clock, and indeed I'll be doing that for the rest of this week and next week. So there you go, something to look forward to as you have your frozen peas and your chicken fillet or your faggots or whatever it is that you're going to be consuming tonight. It is wonderful to have you join me. And don't just join me in spirit, don't just sit there lending an ear to the show. Why not lend a bit of lip service as well? Because this is the home of democratic broadcasting, where your voice counts. Power to the people and all the rest of it. So if you would like to throw in your 2-bit, it won't cost you a bit at all, because it's your normal network rate. You can pick up the phone at any point and register your interest to chat with me live in the studio by dialing 0344 499 1000. And the wonderful Faith is going to pick up the call and make sure you're not too much of a nutter. And if you're not, she'll patch you through to the studio as and when we get round to taking calls. But you can also use that number to send me a WhatsApp message at any point during the course of the show, or even leave me a little voice note on WhatsApp 0344 499 1000. If you'd rather send me a text message because you're a little bit old school, well, you can do that as well. And that's also your normal network rate, and that number is 87222. But if you are going to use that particular mode of correspondence, then you have to write the word talk before you type out your message, for reasons, quite frankly, that I have no idea about. But it just means it gets into my little Cape Canaveral here and doesn't end up trying to, I don't know, sneak into the messages sent to Talk Sport or Virgin or wherever else in this building. Got a patch show coming up for you today, and what a press conference this morning, eh? Did you watch it? I did. I was sitting there in my Jimmy Jammies in my garden and put it on and thought, OK, let's hear it then, Nige. What have you got to say? What's your policy unit scared up? But more than anything, because I had some idea what he was going to be announcing. A lot of stuff had been pre-leaked. He'd written a big piece in the Times and so forth. But what I really wanted to know is, how are the journalists going to unpick this? Are they going to ask about, is this legally watertight? How did you come up with the sums to how you're going to calculate this? How are you going to keep people into detention? How many detention centres might that require building? How much will that cost? You know, really drilling down, challenging the detail and seeing how practicable the whole thing is and finding out whether it's a load of hot air. Oh no, they didn't do that, did they? No, they didn't scrutinise at all the efficacy of this policy. No, it was like an I'm Spartacus moment, except instead of I'm Spartacus, it seemed to be I'm Woketus. Because they all stood there, didn't they, signing up, this is what's her face from Sky, this is what's his face in the mirror, you know, and they all went, oh, but Nigel, what if one of these people are deported and they get tortured back at home? I said, what is wrong with you? They all ask the same questions. When a journalist has asked a question once, write down the answer, because that is the answer. The fact that they were all just repeating it was more performance art, because they all wanted to show one another and the audience back at home how virtuous they are, how progressive they are, how much they worry about these young men breaking into our country illegally. Not once. Oh no, it didn't occur to that lot to think, the rest of the country is standing outside migrant hotels right now saying, protect our kids, because we have had numerous incidents of sexual assaults, of attacks, of connections to terrorism. So what about if someone isn't deported? Does the judge lose sleep at night knowing that person's gone on to attack, molest, assault a little girl, ruining her life forever? Surely the purpose of our politicians is to primarily show the greatest amount of empathy with their own people. And yet the whole media class, there they are, the little narcissists that they are, wired up to just do their whole showering themselves with sort of faux virtue, faux moral superiority. It made me sick to the stomach. I really looked at that press conference and just thought, you lot are an absolute waste of space. You should be ashamed of yourselves. I mean, what are journalists these days, apart from a load of trumped-up narcissists with social media accounts who are more interested in the sound of their own voice? I know, I could be talking about myself, but at least I'm not a lefty. Right, anyway, let's go back to that top story, shall we? Which is Nigel Farage unveiling plans for mass deportations. The Tories have claimed that they've nicked it off them. Really? Didn't notice you doing any of that stuff the last 14 years? Huh? Or where was I? Did I miss something? Anyway, let's speak now to Layla Cunningham, who's a Westminster councillor for Reform UK. Good evening, Layla.
Hi, how are you?
Well, I'm very well, my darling. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Now, my personal opinion was I thought that press conference was rather a triumph. I didn't really see any journalists picking holes and being able to say that won't work and this won't work. And, you know, I'm waiting. The leftists are going to come out, aren't they? All the judges and the ECHR aficionados are all going to go, you can't do this, me. But I think a lot of the members of the general public will have guzzled that up. The problem is, of course, it does now have to work, doesn't it?
I mean, the thing is, it has to work, because if people vote for it and we are in a democracy, I don't think any unelected official or any part of the blob or any staff of the civil service have any right to block it. We'll have a clear political mandate. And that's how democracy is supposed to work. But Alex, what you were saying before I came on, I completely agree with you. I find it astonishing that the media showed more outrage over the deportation of dangerous offenders than the abuse and exploitation and potential danger of our women and girls. And not only girls, by the way, boys are also in danger because they commit other crimes apart from sexual abuse that I've prosecuted. And that tells you everything where our political class's priorities lie. And it's definitely not with the British people. And it was so refreshing and comforting to hear of a leader like Nigel that finally wants to put British interests as a priority. It sounds so simple.
What I want to ask, though, is what are the timeframes in all of this? Because, you know, the electorate tend to be rather impatient. They will want to see results and see results soon. But it seems to me what your legal eagles, your Star Council, have put together is quite the legislative overhaul, getting rid of the ECHR, which is going to take having to rewrite the Good Friday Agreement, scrapping the Human Rights Act. Is that going to be replaced by anything? You've got to then unpick an entire canon of legal history in case case precedent. It is basically a massive Great Reform Act, and I want to know what the time frame of that's going to be, because those things here, Rome weren't built in a day, and such a huge sweeping change to what's been essentially built into so many parts of our legislation, so many statutes, so many underwritings of treaties, so many victories amongst certain judges with certain appeals and further appeals in courts. That is a heavy lifting job.
I mean, it will be a matter of urgency. It will be, Trump declared a national emergency as soon as he came in, and he got on with the job from day one. And now you've seen illegal crossings are down by 97% in the USA. It can be done. And upon winning, we will leave the ECHR, we will repeal the Human Rights Act, and we will replace it with a Bill of Rights. But we don't even need a Bill of Rights, because human rights, we had human rights before the Human Rights Act in 1998. It's embedded in our common law, it's embedded in our laws. And what the British Bill of Rights will be, it will assert our rights, and will pass the illegal migration bill.
But what's the time frame on all of this? Because this is what I'm wondering. These sorts of bits of legislation, and especially the granular unpicking of everywhere where you find the footprints of things like the European Convention of Human Rights and case precedent. It is a massive undertaking. Surely that's going to take the best part of 5 years, if not a decade.
No, I mean, legislation can pass quickly. Don't forget that Parliament is sovereign. And we will create a legal duty for the Home Secretary to remove illegal migrants. And that is huge. Will this apply? Because what you don't realise is, so I was on holiday recently, Alex, and I did think I couldn't find my passport, with so many kids that they do. The house creates some sort of chaos. And I thought, oh my God, I can't go home without my passport. But then you've got illegal migrants who are crossing the boat, entering our country without any passports. We have a two-tier system where the citizens are subject to passport control as they come in, whereas people coming on the boats don't. In fact, they throw their thing and they throw their passport, they're welcomed into a hotel and an all-inclusive stay. We are not equal under the law right now.
Oh, no, I fully agree with that. I think the way that we happen to be treating these invaders is utterly ridiculous, especially when you look at the fact they live in bin-bag bivouacs in the sand dunes of Calais. It's absolutely insane that we give them five-star hotels, a new phone, pocket money, special deals on the local leisure centre where they can go perv on women in the changing rooms, maybe have a free trip down to the beach while you're at it. I find it utterly repugnant. But my concern is this. I lived through the Brexit years. I was there on the front lines, and the political establishment and the legal establishment didn't want to see it happen. That historic vote happened in 2016. One could argue we still haven't got our own way now. My worry is that the establishment are going to get pretty gnarly over this. They're going to fight it with every single tool in their box. There's going to be, unless you come up with a massive government and make Nigel Farage president with absolute executive control, are you not worried that they will have ways to destabilise this and get it stuck in the weeds? Or have you managed to second guess the lot of it and make sure that you prevent that sort of fight back taking place?
So, yes, Brexit was completely betrayed and not implemented at all, but you forget one major point. The Conservatives were in power, right? The Conservatives did not have the political will or the political stamina or the courage to do any of this. I mean, they're still debating if they're going to leave the ECHR. We've been in it for decades. It is so clearly standing in the way. When you hear a foreign rapist that can't be deported for things like chicken nuggets, right? Something I can't remember, silly things like that. You think, how can any government or any party in power not want to leave the ECHR? We don't need a foreign government or a foreign court or any kind of legislation that doesn't prioritise British people's human rights. And frankly, people are sick to death.
But we know who's behind all of this, don't we? We know it's the woke judges. We know that, unless you get an absolute, every single seat in that parliament, there's going to be a lot of politicians. There's going to be people in the House of Lords. There's nobody from Reform UK in that second chamber. They're going to overturn it the minute it gets in front of them. My concern is we know what the establishment are like. We know how hard they fight against the interests of British people, and that when Lord Hermer's no longer our Attorney General, he's going to have some time on his hands. I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to march Nigel Farage to court himself. That's what I'm concerned about. And have you as a party made sure, have you done the due diligence to make sure that these people do not have the capacity or the capability of getting in your way, because they're going to want to?
Of course, because basically judges have to implement legislation, right? So if human rights is not in our legislation anymore, and if the Human Rights Act is no longer legislation, they can't enact it. And they've never encountered a leader like Nigel. We're going to be a reform government, which this country's never seen, and that's why we're in this mess. And we will win a big majority, because you and I know that the public are sick to death about what's going on. And once you have a government and a leader like Nigel that actually means what he says and really means and wants to put the British people first, it will be totally different. It will be a totally different, he'll be a different captain of the ship.
I'll tell you what, you guys are going to have to flood the zone, because they're going to be waiting. They're lying in wait right now. I bet they're already working on their ways to try and face this stuff down. Let's have a listen to Nigel this morning talking about the mass deportation policy.
The political impossibility was deporting millions and millions of people, and that's where the argument had gone. We had a situation, a political difficulty within Reform UK. This does happen to parties. They do have difficulties and problems. We had a problem that one of our MPs, who's no longer an MP, was talking about deporting entire communities, including people who've been born here. And frankly, we found that unacceptable. And so I just did not want, I think you can quote me for another interview, to get dragged down the route of mass deportations at that stage. We have sorted out that political internal difficulty that we had, and since that time, the work has been done on a credible plan so that we can deport hundreds of thousands of people over the 5 years of a reform government.
I mean, what I want to know, actually, and what a lot of people might want to know is, Layla, is there going to be any sort of retrospective elements to all of this? Or is it going to be, as soon as reform comes in, from that moment, someone arriving illegally faces deportation? Or will they go back and say, well, look, 4 years ago, you came over on a small boat, ta-ta?
I believe that anyone who is here illegally will be deported. They will receive a letter or some kind of notification telling them a date that they will be deported. They will have the opportunity to self-deport. And of course, as Nigel said in his speech, and Zia said, if you know that they're onto you and you know you're going to be deported anyway, a lot will take the option to self-deport, but we can't predict how many will. But it will be anyone who's here illegally. It's not, you're not going to get away with it because you came in the day before we were elected. No, that's not.
So it will have a retrospective element. It will be anyone who's just got off a boat in the last week. They will be deported in 5 years' time.
Yes, and we're putting them on notice. There's no point in coming, because when we win, they will be deported.
Let's now have a listen to Kemi Badenoch's response to Nigel's announcement this morning.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. The fact is, Nigel Farage is copying our homework. We put out a deportation bill in May. The stuff that actually works and what he said has come from there. But the truth is, he is not doing the thinking, we are. And just like we've seen with the Labour governments who didn't do their thinking in opposition, there'll be a disaster in government, and in particular, a disaster on the economy.
He says he wants to leave the EHCR. You haven't decided that yet.
Well, you will know that in May, we got an eminent KC to review a lot of the treaties which are impacting us, deporting people who should not be in our country. And I have said that we will announce at our conference exactly what we're going to do and how. Saying you're going to leave the ECHR is not a plan. It's going to have a lot of impact on things like the Good Friday Agreement. It's going to impact on so many other laws. How do we make sure that if we have to do this, we do it in a way that doesn't destabilise our country or our economy? Only the Conservatives are working on that.
I mean, look, she's got a point in terms of, like I said, this legislative overhaul is a lot of heavy lifting. But did you nick it off the Tories, this policy?
No, Nigel's been talking about this, I mean, for years, way before the Tories woke up for it. Did she talk about destabilising the country? Did they not realise that we are already destabilised and that started under them? They're the ones that started using hotels. They're the ones that placed unvetted men, Alex, that we have no history in middle of towns and villages. I mean, you and I know that if you get charged with a sexual assault here, you go on a sexual register, and there's no way any council, any government's going to place you in the middle of towns and villages. But these men, Admittedly, not all are sexual offenders, but some could be. Some could be serial rapists back home. We have no idea. And they placed them next to schools and villages. And that started under the Conservatives. So I don't know what she's talking about. Of course it will be hard. But so what? Have you met Nigel Farage? When has he said he's going to do something? And he hasn't. We got Brexit done. Sadly, we were failed operationally by the Tories, as usual. I mean, it was Kemi Badenoch that was in charge of removing all EU regulation and failed to do that because it was too hard. And that's why Brexit failed.
Now, obviously, if you're going to deport people and you're going to have 5 flights taking off every single day, deportations tend to happen under bilateral agreements. You have a negotiation with the country of origin where you have a contract where you are able to legally send people back to that country. It turns out the Taliban have said they're ready and willing to work with Nigel Farage and accept deported Afghans. Is that music to your ears that the Taliban are going, come on, Nigel, we're here ready to sign a treaty with you?
No one from Afghanistan who came on a boat illegally should be walking our streets. That's it. And Nigel Farage has made it clear reform will do what it takes to protect the British people. His priority will always be British people, not foreign treaties.
If that included sending, if the Taliban said, yeah, we'll accept deportations back to Afghanistan, but in return we want millions and millions and millions of pounds, would he say, fine, this is so big, we're going to do that, we're going to give the Taliban millions and millions and millions of British pounds?
I can't predict what the agreement will be, but as you heard, it will be carrot and stick. And if they're willing to take back, and the point, Alex, is that once these are implemented, people will stop crossing. So the fact that they'll be tortured when they go back or giving this is all moot point, because people will stop coming into the country when they know that it's not a free, all-inclusive life that they get here.
Is it not just easy? One thing I didn't really pick up from this is where people are going to be housed during all of this, because the big argument has been against the hotels. They may be shutting down. I find it personally even more harrowing that young men might not be in hotels but all shacked up 6-person to a house down your street as your next door neighbour, where no one's got eyes on what they're getting up to, where they can be bringing people back home and doing Lord knows what. I find that even more chilling. Are you going to be building loads of big deportation centres?
Yeah, I mean, in America, they built deportation centres in weeks, if not days, to house thousands of migrants. We will. And the difference is that when they're in hotels, they're allowed to roam free, right? And when they were previously, I think, housed in detention centres, when we did use them, they were also allowed to be housed free. They will be detained until they are deported. So there will be no fear from residents. There'll be no fear from you walking down your street or British people, because they will not be allowed to roam free. It is a crime to enter this country illegally. And effectively, Labour and Conservatives had decriminalised it. They've actually decriminalised entering our country illegally. And that means if we don't have borders, we don't have a country, we don't have sovereignty. And that's what successive governments have done.
Now, let's have a listen, shall we, to the Labour Party's reaction to this. This is the MP, Matthew Pennycook.
But it's got to be done, as I say, in a planned and managed way, not a chaotic and haphazard way, precisely so we can manage those pressures and ensure that we've got the right amount of accommodation. It's not putting undue pressure on communities. The very worst scenario under unplanned discharge is that we see large numbers of asylum seekers waiting for their claims to be processed, sleeping rough on our streets, putting huge pressure on local councils. And it's for this reason that, while I share the frustration of residents in Epping and other communities across the country where hotels are in use, though communities across the country will not benefit from a chaotic discharge as a result of legal rulings such as the interim injunction we've seen, which is precisely why the government is intervening to become a party to that injunction to challenge it.
Now, talking about the Labour Party, just a quick one before I let you go, Layla. One of Labour's biggest donors apparently has himself £3.5 million worth of contracts with the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan. My new neighbour, Mr Dale Vince, Ecotricity, based in Stroud. I went past Stroud the other day, went past the Ecotricity headquarters. I've never seen such a massive Palestinian flag in all my days, right in the heart of Gloucestershire. Honest to God. But do you think that there's a big problem with this? Is this a conflict of interest?
Yeah, let's be honest, Alex. It's obvious what's going on here. Sadiq Khan and Dale Vince are perfectly aligned. They want to punish motorists, not criminals. And that's been the mayor's priority all along. ULEZ, congestion charges, restriction. It's all about hammering working people under the banner of green agenda. But crime, knife crime, sexual violence, repeat offenders, there's no political profit in tackling that, no donor money, obviously, no headlines, and certainly no lucrative contracts. You know, this is a mayor who's moved heaven and earth to roll out ULEZ cameras, to fine pensioners, delivery drivers, but can't even be bothered to prioritise basic safety. So yeah, I do think there's an issue and there's a conflict of interest.
No, well, you know, I think there's certainly something that needs to be dug about out there. It does seem interesting when you have millions of pounds worth of contracts with a party you're also donating money to, that questions should definitely be asked. Layla, thank you ever so much. It's been wonderful catching up with you. I'm going to do some messages now before we go to break and enjoy a little bit of letting off steam, because I've been away for 2 weeks. I've got a lot to say. I've been keeping it all bottled up inside, haven't I? Hello, Alex. Welcome back. Hope you are better. And so I am. 3 cheers for Nigel Farage. We need Nigel in number 10 ASAP. A strong leader who will put the British people first. Bring it on, says Margaret in Birmingham. And thank you, Margaret. I am indeed better. You'll notice, regular viewers, I scratch like a stray dog normally, but don't you worry. They've thrown a load of steroids in my direction, so I'm just not itchy anymore. It's great. Alex, the Afghan deal would be an amazing preventative measure. How many would not come, says Dave in Lichfield. I mean, look, the thing is, you've got to do deals with countries if you're going to deport people. The question is what you give in return, and it might not sound particularly pleasurable to have to be drawing up a deal with the Taliban, but hey, we left there, didn't we? We didn't stop the Taliban getting into power, and they're the people who run the country, so you've either got to do a deal with them or don't do a deal with them, and you can't deport anybody. Donna in London says, hurrah, glad you're better now. Have missed your common sense and wit. Looking great. Am I? Thanks. I don't know. I still feel a bit rubbish, if I'm honest with you, but it's nice to be back in the hot seat. Welcome back, Alex. So the Taliban are willing to work with Farage. The left are going to lose their minds. But our Prime Minister will recognise Palestine in September, which is run by a terrorist group, Hamas. Welcome to the Twilight Zone. Oh, don't you worry. This will be like, oh, he's going to work with the Taliban. Starmer's going to use that all the time. That's going to be his go-to. That's going to be his emergency lever. You know, up till now, he's been saying, Liz Truss in answer to every question. Just you wait, PMQs, his attack on Farage, will be like, this is the man who wants to do a deal with the Taliban. He's just going to run it dry, isn't he? And yet they're the people who want to bring in Islamophobia as a law. We're going to be discussing that one a bit later on in the show as well. How dare the Labour Party and Starmer put every female in the UK at risk? How dare they? This is my point, OK? Why are we more worried about what happens if Abdul goes back to Damascus, right, because he got on the wrong side of old HTB or whatever they're called, who run the place down there now? Why are we more worried about him than little girls who might be being harassed by these men? Because I'm sorry, it's not a case of, well, you know, they could commit a sexual offence back at home. They're coming from a country where, as a woman, you can't even get your barnet out in public, right? So it seems to me that these people, by the time they get to the age of sexual maturity, are going to have a very different idea about the way you treat a woman to the ideas that we have and have long been established in the United Kingdom. And I think that's a pretty toxic cocktail. We're seeing it happen already, aren't we? How these people manage to have such a level of cognitive dissonance that they would rather side with the rapists than be called a racist, Lord knows. Alex, it's wonderful to see you back. Thanks. As for funding the cost of deporting the illegal immigrants, I'd contribute to crowdfunding it if it comes to it, says Stephen from Lincolnshire. I bet a lot of people stick their hands in their pockets if they thought a jumbo jet full of illegal migrants might take off. Alex, when Nige was asked that stupid question about what if someone gets killed or tortured after being deported, I was expecting him to say something like, if we can't send them home, we'll send them back to the last country they were in before they came to the UK. That would get the French thinking, says Hev in Kent. Yeah, the thing is, Macron doesn't think for himself. It's the EU, isn't it? Got to deal with the whole of the EU. And they're not going to do a deal with us, are they? Not in a million years, sunshine. Dan from Kent says, the people have seen it. Next month, the people are going to speak. Democracy only works so far in the Western world. Common sense will always find a way. Let's hope you are correct in that. Good evening, Alex. Excellent start to your show as usual, says Warwick in Devon. Is it? Oh, I don't know, it's weird being off for 2 weeks and then sort of coming back. I feel like I'm talking gibberish. I've forgotten how to use the English language, but I'll try my best. Alex, you're so right about the left-wing journalists trying but not succeeding to inconvenience Nigel Farage. You can tell that these journalists are like frightened sheep, given their bleating. Well, they're all narcissists. I've written a Substack on it today. There's actually been scientific research into leftism and narcissism. They're basically the same thing. Right, OK, let's take a short break now. I'm going to catch my breath, and when I come back, I'm going to have my good old mate, the Baba from the Shire, one of my favourites, James Price, here to help me do the heavy lifting. That's after this.
Immigration has always been one of the sort of big three subjects where you compare it to the cost of living crisis and the NHS, but it just seems to be ratcheting up even higher. Now, it's all very well and good having smaller policies and saying there's no silver bullet. It's going to take a whole plethora of policies to actually get on top of dealing with illegal migration.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, hello there and welcome back to the show, and welcome aboard HMS Common Sense, Mr. James Price, the biggest, girtest, bestest babber of the lot of them. Hello there, my darling.
Hello there, how are you?
I'm all right. I've just made the commute from our Shire today as a new resident of the Sticks. Tell you what, it's a nice place to be. Didn't even lock my back door last night. Brilliant. Anyway, I'm sure that you watched the news conference today, Nigel Farage announcing mass deportations. One of the elements that he was talking about is trying to essentially rumble the judges who block these deportations, the immigration lawyers who shower themselves in a faux moral rectitude from being able to have their own way and prevent deportations. And it seems to me that this is already happening across Europe. In fact, Friedrich Merz, the German Chancellor, has abolished the automatic assignment of lawyers to people facing deportation.
It's interesting, isn't it, that this whole legal apparatus isn't actually unique to Britain. We've seen this right across Europe, and I think it must be a combination of the European Union and the kind of increased legalization of politics right across the continent because of the EU and because of changes that have happened to the ECHR, the European Court of Human Rights, that adjudicates on the European Convention on Human Rights. Because, of course, like all things in Europe, it's got to be really inefficient and have two names with the same acronym just to try and confuse people. But it does seem interesting that we've moved away in Britain over recent decades from the old common law way, which is, let's take the example of the tree outside my window. Unless there's a law that says I'm not allowed to climb that tree, there used to be a kind of presumption of legality that I should be allowed to go and climb that tree. Whereas the kind of Napoleonic code that spread across a lot of the continent was there has to be a law that says you're allowed to climb that tree. And I'm being slightly facetious with this, but that's the broad way that things have been on the continent for a long time. And because of all these damn laws that came out of our membership of the European Union for a long time and had to spread uniformity, whether it was in London or Paris or Vilnius or Riga or Athens Netherlands or wherever else it may be, you had this kind of creeping legalisation and the rule of law replaced with the rule of lawyers. It's interesting now that not just in Britain are we seeing a fight back, but as you say, in Germany, I know that Giorgia Meloni in Italy is trying to push back on this as well. And of course, it's been done so effectively on the other side of the pond as well, where they haven't had to deal with the ECHR, and Trump is able, by executive action, to get a control of their borders and control of much else as well.
I mean, what is so interesting about Germany being the people to, I mean, they're not necessarily the first people to do things like, is it Poland who turned around and said, or Denmark, saying we're not going to take any more asylum seekers? Or maybe it was both of them, I don't know. But it seems Europe are ahead of us, actually, when it comes to getting tough on this issue. But the interesting thing about Germany now getting tough on this issue is arguably it was Germany who started all of this.
Well, yeah, let's go back 10 years to Angela Merkel and Wir schaffen das, or we can do this. This idea that she just one day decided to let 1 million people from the third world into Europe, and especially on its way to Germany. And then when there were mass rapes the first New Year's of this happened, they tried to lean on various media outlets and all the rest to stop these stories coming out. I mean, she's very lucky, Angela Merkel, that the bar for worst ever German leader is quite as low as it is, right? It's taking a long way now with Merz, who's actually the guy that she beat 20 odd years ago, coming in now trying to fix this. Is it going to be enough? Well, probably not, because the Germans have got a coalition where the losing party at the election, who've been in charge for the last 4 disastrous years, the SPD, get to stay inside the government as the junior coalition partner, and they're probably not going to allow all of the sorts of stuff that will be needed to fix Germany. And what's going to happen then? Well, the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, support for them will grow yet again. And it is an example why we're lucky we don't normally have these kind of backroom door coalitions that happen too often in Britain. But it does show that all European countries are in the same basket, exactly as you say, Alex, because Merkel started this by letting in so many people who are totally culturally incompatible with the continent of Europe.
Yeah, do you know what? I reckon that woman should be dragged up in front of the Hague for treason in Germany. Every single rape, every single sexual assault, every single terror attack. There was a period of time where there seemed to be a terror attack once a week coming out of Germany. Stabbings and car rampages. And I think that woman's got blood on her hands. I don't know where she's got into hiding, but it's about time Mutti Merkel was brought out from the shadows and was held accountable for what she did, not just to her own country, but to a continent, and all of her apologisers and applauders in the mainstream media who thought she was the best thing since sliced bread. Absolutely shocking. Let's talk about this. Fast-track asylum bills process is going to be introduced. The average time for decisions is currently more than a year. Apparently some clever bods are going to be brought in, a new independent panel focused on asylum appeals to help reduce the backlog. Is this good news, the fact that we're not going to be shoving people in hotels for years at a time where they get up to Lord knows what and it's costing us a shed load of money? Or is there a risk, actually, that what we're going to do, given the approval rating in the UK for these people seems to be about 75% compared to about 40% over in France, that all these chancers and Lord knows who and ne'er-do-wells who have come over on small boats are just going to automatically be allowed to stay?
It's not good news at all. There's this idea that Yvette Cooper, the hapless Home Secretary, seems to think that what people in the country are angry about is the taxpayer bill for the hotels and nothing else. I mean, that is just ludicrous, right? If that's what she actually thinks, I mean, I hope it's probably not what she thinks, but she's trying to pretend that that's what it is. And then she's got another thing coming. 20 odd years ago, when Tony Blair was still Prime Minister, he at least acknowledged that most of the people who make asylum claims are bogus, they're economic actors, all the rest of it. He said as much in a speech, I think it was to the Institute for Government or the IPPR or something like that 20 odd years ago, and said as much that this is not true. And back then, asylum approvals were about 5%. Today, they're over 2/3. Do we really think the world has got that much more dangerous? Bearing in mind he was saying this at the time when he joined in with the Iraq war that Alistair Campbell lied to everybody about and all the rest. No, I don't think so. I think he at least understood this. The problem that we've got now, Alex, is that if you do, as you say, have these people moving from the expensive hotels into what they try and call HMOs, because it's always good to have another acronym so people don't know what's going on. HMO just stands for houses of multiple occupancy. Basically, a normal house on a residential street, next door perhaps to where people listening and watching to this show are living right now. You shove a bunch of these guys into these places while they're waiting to be approved. And then rather than go, you know that Ibis in Gloucester, to use our home city as an example, where people know, let's stay away from there in case that these people about whom we know nothing. We don't know whether they're Shakespeare in the making. We don't know whether they're members of ISIS or any of the rest. Well, instead of going, at least we can sort of steer clear of that bit of town. Maybe it's the house next to us. Maybe it's the one over the road. Maybe it's the one next door to your granny. And we don't know anymore. Yeah. And then what you're going to have, if these people are as dangerous as a lot of the statistics coming out say that they are, and we know how many examples of crimes being committed by these people, or the Iranian terrorists who got smuggled through a month or two ago, it's all gone very quiet, that, hasn't it? We'll start seeing these horrible cases happening in more and more residential streets and all the rest. And then, of course, what are they going to do to actually fix it? They're just going to approve with a big stamp huge numbers of these people and say, right, you can all stay now. In a few years' time, they'll get indefinite leave to remain, then they'll get citizenship, and then they'll be voting for the same Labour Party that gave it to them.
Do you know what? I hate those blimmin' hotels. I hate those hotels. But like you, James, I like to know where they are and I don't want to go near them. And also one assumes, even though people seem to be able to freely come and go do what they like, work on the black market, deliver nosh and all the rest of it, at least it'd be a bit harder to kidnap a 12-year-old from the school gates and drag her back to one of those hotels. I'm worried when we set up essentially terrorist frat houses around the country, quite what these young men are going to get up to.
Yeah, absolutely right. Look, I'm not laughing because I think it's ludicrous. I'm laughing because it's such a farcical situation that we've got ourselves into now. What was it over the long weekend? Another 900 people came over. And I learned recently that, by the way, they do put one woman or child on most boats so that they can call 999 and make sure that the British Border Control will go out and get them and make sure they get in safe. But almost 90% of these people are fighting age men. Are they all members of ISIS? We don't know. We know that some have been terrorists. We know that's a plot that these terrorist organizations have been trying to do. Even if they're not radicalized by some, terrible interpretation of religious ideas, the case that's happened around Epping, without going sub judice or contributing the case, as has been reported, the Crown alleges that one of these people went up to children and said, "I'd like to make a baby with you," right? And obviously this person denies any of the charges or anything like that. But that's what we've heard reported today from one of these trials. Is that an isolated incident? I hope so. I suspect not.
No, and it is so ridiculous. People's concerns. I don't care what nasty, flea-ridden hellhole of a tyrannical regime these people are fleeing anymore. I don't. Because I'll tell you one thing for sure. The good folk of Damascus aren't losing any sleep at night about Jade, who lives in Woking, who hasn't been able to get any social housing and has an abusive partner, and now is even further down the list waiting for a home for her and her kids. No one is losing sleep over that in Dubai or Damascus or anywhere, are they? They don't return the favour. They're not worried about our homeless people. They're not worried about, Lucy Connolly, are they? They're not sitting there reading the newspaper and, oh, well, free speech in the UK ain't looking too good. Perhaps we should all give them a home over here. Why is it that we, as a nation, are supposed to somehow be a sort of charity reciprocal for the whole blimmin' world? What do we owe Syria? I don't get it.
It's a very, very good point. It's a very good point. And we don't, and yet this is the sort of mindset that we've got. There's one Labour MP, I won't even dignify by coming up with her name, but she said we should keep taking people in basically until we're bursting at the seams. Because what does it matter if you've got to queue a little bit longer to get a doctor's appointment? What does it matter if your child's education is a little bit worse? What does it matter when we can help the poor people in the world? And that's what these people think. And it's not just the Labour MPs, although I'd love to have a go at them all day. Gus O'Donnell, now Lord O'Donnell, who was the Cabinet Secretary under the later years of Blair and through Gordon Brown and I think the start of David Cameron's term, is on the record as saying most people assume that the government's main job is the national responsibility or the national interest. I think it's the global interest, and that's the most powerful civil servant in the country, which makes them probably the most powerful person in the country. That is the mindset that they've got. And maybe if we were still pooping out money before the financial crash that we pretended that we were, that would all be well and good. Maybe if we didn't have a massive housing crisis, maybe if the economy had never been touched by Rachel Reeves and was going absolutely great guns, maybe that would be okay. Maybe if we had no problems with the NHS, maybe we had no potholes, then you could start having a conversation about how generous to be. We are not a rich country anymore, and that is something that no one seems to understand, that we're going to have to get into our heads. And but I think by the time of the next election, that will come crashing home when we realise that the debt interest payments that we're spending are way up, way higher than the little spike under Liz Truss, way up to the point where we may have to get an IMF, an International Monetary Fund bailout. We are going to be completely broke. And you're going to see a budget in a few months that's going to make it that much worse, because all Labour know how to do is put your taxes up and keep putting spending up on the unwilling and ungrateful and all the rest of it who don't need it. And more decent people who make a decent crust in this country going to look at their pay packet, look at the taxes coming out. They're going to leave. Taxes are going to go up again on everybody else, and that cycle is going to continue until we are totally bust. And we're going to end up with a country that doesn't have the kind of high talented British people in it we want, or attracting, by the way, the highly talented international people like Mrs. Price. We're going to end up with the third world who've got no cultural compatibility, and all they want to do is be advertised young women they can come and harass, and that's what Britain's going to be. And the last one of us will have to turn the light off.
No, I totally agree. Now, don't you turn off the lights now, James, because we're going to take a short break, but I'm summoning you back for a little bit more output after that. You're going to be, I'm going to be getting my money's worth out of you anyway, and Rachel Reeves will be getting her slice as well, no doubt. But please stay with us because I want to pick your brains about our Deputy Prime Minister after this.
It's not just UCL, so many universities. I mean, you'll be hard-pressed to find a university that has said we will be upholding the Supreme Court ruling. But in my opinion, the real story here is the fact that these academics that you say are remaining anonymous because they're fearful of being vilified by their colleagues. I think it's so cowardly, and academics, and I understand, and I do to an extent sympathise with the fear, and I know full well the consequences that come with expressing the opinion that women have the right to single-sex spaces.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and welcome back to, of course, to Gertlush Babber, James Price. Hello, my love. Thank you for sticking around. So in my sort of malaise of being a very, very sickly little Alex over the last couple of weeks, and sickly I was too, finally got a bit of something out of the NHS, didn't I? Did have to wait for about 1,000 years in A&E. That was quite a spectacle. But anyway, I digress. I've been sitting there sort of feeling a bit sorry for myself, reading through the news, and I'm like, like the rest of the public, how on earth has Angela Rayner, a woman who, as far as I know, right, bought a council house after doing something fiddly, then all she's done since is work for a union and work in politics, which these aren't well-paid jobs. I don't know, if you get to the top of a union, you get quite a handsome sum. But in theory, you're not exactly big balling it around like some sort of barrister in the City of London. So how on earth does she seem to have the cash money to have 3 homes?
It's a very, very good question, and I wish I knew the answer. I think if we did, she probably wouldn't be a member of Parliament for much longer. People who are sports fans might remember that interview that the Chelsea and other manager Jose Mourinho gave once, where he was asked a question. I think maybe he was tempted to say something disobliging about a referee, and he said, "I prefer not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble, so I prefer not to speak." And I'm almost tempted to try and say something like that rather than cast aspersions as to what I'm sure is a totally morally righteous and decent woman who has definitely not done anything untoward in order to get hold of all these houses you talk about. And the fact is that one of them, at least, will be paid for by the taxpayer because MPs get second homes. I think that's fair enough. I wouldn't necessarily all want them to have to live in a kind of grate under the road or something outside Parliament. But she also, as Deputy Prime Minister, gets access to what they call a grace and favour home. So the Prime Minister gets Chequers, and then some of the other top ministers get to share, I think it's Dorney Wood and Chevening and a few other of these lovely stately homes that have been given over to the nation by various wealthy people who used to live in them. Fair enough. And now she's got hold of another one as well. I don't know how she's managed to get hold of this money. I wouldn't mind it. Of course, she is the woman who, when interviewed recently about homes for asylum seekers, said, yeah, there are loads of houses everywhere. Don't worry about it. Well, it doesn't seem like that to me. It seems like a massive housing crisis that she's supposed to be in her main job in charge of fixing, and it looks like she's actually given up on any attempt to build a decent level of new houses. Yet she still finds one for herself. It's curious.
£800,000 flat. I mean, what's she living like? Jeffrey Epstein or something? Like, what's all that about? £800,000 flat down that neck of the woods. That's a lot of money, sunshine. It doesn't make any sense to me. And do you know what I think that we should do? I don't know if it was my mum who said this the other day. Someone said it and I nicked it. You know when you hear someone say something really clever and really good and you think, well, I'm putting that one in the bank and passing it off as my own. Someone said the other day, do you know what we should do? We should get all the MPs' second homes, put all the MIGOs down there, go like, right, your second home's in London, all the MIGs are going to go there now, all right, yeah? Because you want them in HMOs, don't you? And then we should put all the MPs in that Britannia Hotel down Canary Wharf.
Or the Bibby Stockholm, and that would be fun for them, wouldn't it? This actually happened in the United States. You know, the Biden government, the last administration in the States, was taking the southern border so unseriously, or in fact, they actually just completely opened the floodgates and had these people come pouring in, that the very, very sound right-wing governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, took all of these migrants who were coming in, stuck them all in Texas state buses, and bussed them all the way up to Martha's Vineyard, New York City, and all the kind of lefty parts of the country that said, migrants, welcome here, we love them so much, and dumped them in the middle of some of the most expensive, fancy, lefty, liberal places. And after a not very long period of time, the kind of working class people who didn't want that in the first place in New York City and other places were obviously up in arms about this. I thought that was a very clever way to do things. Maybe we should do that as well. I'm sure that Angela Rayner wouldn't mind taking one of these wonderful people, who I'm sure she thinks they're wonderful people, in. I seem to remember Yvette Cooper, now the Home Secretary, when she was in the shadow role, she said that she would take somebody in, and then she never did. Weird, isn't it?
But also, I mean, it's the audacity. I don't know whether this woman is just the most conceited, arrogant piece of work we've had sitting on the green benches, or the thickest person, or perhaps the toxic combination of the two. But you are the blimmin' housing secretary, right? We got a housing shortage. You're the one taxing people on all their second homes and all of that. You're saying, oh, we ain't got a housing shortage, but you know damn well we have. And you ain't building enough to hit your own targets. And in the middle of all of this, you're probably one of the most reported on and photographed. You're the Deputy Prime Minister, for crying out loud. And in the middle of this, you go, rather than just wait a few years until it's my retirement, when there's no longer a Labour government because we've screwed up the country so much, and then buy your second home and go tooling around down on the beach in a dinghy, ha. I mean, it's almost like some sort of sketch now from the thick of it. But in the middle of all this, you think that is the moment that you go and flash 800 grand's worth of your cash monies on getting your home. wrong. Is there nobody advising this woman going, do you know what, Ange, probably not a good look. The optics on that are probably not really very ingratiating, love.
You're quite right. I mean, the more you think about this, let's go through this. So there's a housing crisis, and she just bought a third house for herself. There's a small boat crisis, so she photographs herself sitting in the small boat. There are also now, I think people who are watching the live stream can see this, she's puffing away on a vape, which is exactly one of the things that this government is going to try and ban you from being able to enjoy any of this kind of stuff, and she's showing off with it there as well. And then she's necking a glass a wine or something out on the beach, and some people going, oh, it's so iconic, so iconic. No, I don't think so. When the United States of America gets J.D. Vance, who is a Yale-educated lawyer, tech entrepreneur, former decorated Marine with an IQ bigger than I can count, and we get Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. I just think that she is a kind of middle-class, lefty-lovey, Islington idea of what a working Brit is actually like. But Alex, from our background in Gloucester, you know that actually normal working class people who work their nuts off to get one house don't act in the kind of uncouth ways that she does. I wouldn't imagine that anyone you've ever met from when we were growing up in Gloucester would scream across a room that political opponents theirs were a, quote, bunch of scum, right? And yet Angelina does it. And some people in London in the fancy bits go, oh, God, it's so authentic, isn't it? I just think she's crass and rude and that we deserve better as a
How did we end up with such a dreadful bunch of human beings sitting around that cabinet? I mean, seriously, it's like a who's who of failure. A lot of them are just either ideologically insane, they need their heads checked, they've got nasal problems, half of them can't seem to speak because they've got permanent blocked up noses. I don't know if they all share the same hairdresser sponsored by Lord Ali, because they all look like they're sort of made by Mattel with their weird square fringes and like Sir Keir Starmer's Elnet immovable barnet. But these people are also just so bang average. They're dreadful.
Absolutely right. And there is a really serious point to this as well, which is, the Tony Blair Institute, I think it is, we've got 700 people working there, had, I'm told and reported, a big role to play in picking lots of the new Labour MPs. And they knew they were going to win big, and they had a kind of an iron grip over MP selection. And yet they managed to pick a load of non-entities. The only thing they've actually managed to do, which was to rebel on the tiniest welfare saving that will go no short way towards bankrupting the country, by the way. And the only conscience things they've voted on is to kill granny and to kill 9-month-old babies just before they get born, and yet no other idea. So what we need to see instead, whether it's Reform or the Conservatives or a bit of both, or definitely both need to try this, is when it comes to candidate selection, to get different kinds of people, to get really high quality people for whom perhaps being an MP isn't the best job they're ever going to have. And then even if they only serve one term or so, one term is perhaps, we've just about got enough time for this to be all we need to save Britain, and to have a load of high quality people who aren't going to be flappable about anything, who are going to understand that there's a plan that needs to be executed and delivered and carried out, and then can go on with the rest of their lives. But it's really, really serious that we get a load of high quality people. And we do that, by the way, we should pay them a lot more, or at least peg the MPs' pay to the level of the economy, and that would be a fun way to do things, because if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. But we really, as you say, Alex, have a really elite talent problem. For most of history, the most talented people would at some point go into government. Even Isaac Newton was drafted in to help sort out the post office once upon a time. And that's what we need. Oh yeah, and that we had that in America as well recently, with the tech bros deciding that things were so bad they'd have to stop building, super duper robots or whatever, and put their shoulder to the wheel. And we need the best of Britain to do that in the next election too, for the Reform Party and the Conservative Party, whatever happens with those two.
Do you know what, James? As you know, I'm planning on setting up, in the process of establishing, a right-wing common sense enclave, a utopia out in our old home county, and I do hope you're going to come visit me, and you won't leave again. You'll just be like, why am I still living in London? Why am I down Brent?
We could do this show from the countryside. I think it'd be nice, right? I think people would appreciate a kind of bucolic scene in the background rather than the remnants of the Notting Hill Carnival outside my window where people have been round stabbing each other and all the rest of it.
I'll tell you what, I have got the best pub, a dangerous 30-second walk from my front door. I went there last night and I had the best welcome from all the locals. It's one of those pubs where everybody knows everybody and knows everybody. And as soon as I walked in, they were like, oh, you're the new girl. Oh, are you that new girl? Are you that new girl? Everyone's buying me a drink, being really friendly. Oh, lovely, amazing, proper community spirit. But the other wonderful, reassuring thing is instead of a MyGo hotel on my doorstep, no, when I open my front door in the morning, most of my neighbours only know how to say one word, and that word is moo. And it's just...
By the way, before that pub opens, if you're still thirsty for a tipple, my friend Simon has Phoenix Wines in Cirencester. He's a great man. It's a great wine shop. You and anybody else within 100 miles should go and visit there as well, before the pub opens, of course.
Oh, there you go. I'll make sure I check it out next time I go into the big, bright lights of the town. Mr. James Price, it's been wonderful having you on the programme, and I'll see you down my end soon. I tell you what, I could not be happier. I don't live in London anymore, folks. That is right. I've gone back to God's own county of Gloucestershire, and how wonderful it is as well. And I would invite you all over, but frankly, I'm not going to give my address out on air because I'd get some nut job, wouldn't I, turning up with some Socialist Workers' Party banners. So shh. No tell, no say. But it is a wonderful thing to be surrounded by the good and great folk of Gloucestershire once again. Right, now, don't go anywhere because there's still a couple of hours left on the clock, and coming up after the break, we're going to be speaking to Lucy White, a public policy specialist, all about statistics of sex crimes by foreign nationals. It's a subject close to my heart. I'm going to keep banging the drum about it. So we're going to be discussing that after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello. Welcome back to the show. Right, and Aaron, I have a feeling, I don't know what you make of this, but I think I've been talking gibberish for an hour. I feel like I've sort of like lost my sea legs a little bit. You know, I haven't been in this studio for a couple of weeks. I've let my brain go to rot. I'm rattling with pills. And no, nothing illicit, nothing that fun. No, goodness, no. No. Or just, you know, good, honest, legal medication designed to make me function again. Yeah, and it's very weird, actually, when you haven't done this for. You kind of feel like I've forgotten how to do it. I've forgotten how to speak the English language. I haven't really said anything to anyone for the last 2 weeks other than grunting at people and pointing at things and like, "Ugh," and just basically looking like a sort of sad, hollowed out, spotty, poxy, rancid version of myself. And so now I'm sort of gloriously back, resurrected like a phoenix from the flames, and I'm sitting in this chair and half of my brain's listening to me going, what on earth are you on about? What are you blathering on about, woman? Maybe this is what I always sounded like, and actually the sort of, you know, all of the medications have actually turned me into a semi-normal person that I've actually got a level of self-awareness I didn't have before. Lord knows. I'm enjoying being back, though. I was a little bit apprehensive, I'm not going to lie, after being so poorly. And then getting the train in today, it's like, oh, gosh, this is going to be, I kind of wanted to just go and crawl back into bed and hide under my duvet and feel very sorry for myself. And I was very, very apprehensive. I actually had a little knot of anxiety in my sternum. It's actually still there. I've just podded in my belly and gone, oh yeah, no, that's still there. I don't know why. It's not like I haven't done this before. But yeah, no, funny old job, this one. It's very easy to sort of feel out of touch after just a couple of weeks. But thank you for your company. And if I have been talking gibberish, give me a moment. I've still got to warm up. But anyway, 1 hour done, 2 hours to go, and things can only improve, one should hope. Now, the next story is something that I have been banging on about for a very long time indeed. Because my experience when I lived in London was that when I walked down Earl's Court Road, that's where I used to live. I don't live there anymore, so I can tell you now. I used to just say West London, you know, be all vague in case the leftists turn up. But I used to live in Earl's Court. When I first moved to Earl's Court about 4 years ago, back when the rent was £1,000 a month cheaper. Oh yeah, like seriously, it went up that much in 4 years. It was a nice neighbourhood. It's in Kensington, the Royal Borough of Kensington, Chelsea, which is a very la-di-da posho borough. But it's got some gnarly stuff down Kensington, right? West Kensington is, you know, quite fresh. That's where Grenfell and all that is. And it's a bit sort of stabby and weird down those parts. But Earl's Court, lots of fast food restaurants, but otherwise sort of quite humble, but not edgy particularly. Oh, no, not until it became edgy. And I'll tell you for why. Earl's Court and that bit of Kensington seems to me to have just loads and loads and loads of hotels. If you come to London, most of the time you end up booking a hotel in Earl's Court. And clearly, I've not sort of gone and done the audit and been around my clipboard seeing where they are. But clearly some of these hotels have been appropriated to house our good friends from Lord knows where. Because you know who they are. You walk down the street and all of a sudden, there they are with their slightly roomy eyes and their mad hair, you know, just lurking around, following you around Sainsbury's. And so a number of things happened. I started to get followed. The first time it happened, it was in broad daylight, about 2 in the afternoon, and a man chuntering away in one of those Afghan hats, you know, the ones that look like a sort of miniature Hessian sack folded up. He started walking right alongside me. I was on the phone to my mum and he's like, really close, followed me all the way to my front door. I had to go hide in my neighbour's house. That was strike one. Then there was just every day then, going up the street, leering men, always standing outside the bookies with their little cigarettes, watching you go by, following you, coming up to you in the supermarket, even when you look like Rick Parfitt, because you've just woken up and your hair looks like a sort of social experiment and your eyes are sort of sunken and hollow. No, even then they'd be coming up to me like, you know, hi, lady, lady, beautiful lady, lady. You'd be like, gross, get away from me right now, if you would. And then it just seemed to spiral out of control. Earl's Court seemed to then become the hub of Deliveroo. So all the guys, the Uber deliverers and all the rest of it seemed to all sort of park up, largely down the end of my street. And when my mum was there over the last, when I was moving out, helping me do my packing, she looked outside my window and she's like, there's a dude on a prayer mat outside your house. I'm like, oh yeah. I remember one day coming home and I found some weird rucksack full of pro-pally stuff hanging on my front door. I'm like, what's going on here? And it just started to get really, really horrid. And my gorgeous producer, Samara, she also lives not in Earl's Court, by the way. We're not going to send people around to Samara's house because she doesn't actually live there. But she lives in London. And we used to exchange notes on the sort of things that happened. She basically almost got held hostage by some mad migrant on a bus the other day. It was a known rapist in the area. I mean, she's got chased down the road by a man with a knife. It's not funny. This is why I've had to get out of London, because it is absolutely crazy town out there now. And it has fallen very blimmin' quickly. And I'll tell you what, when I first turned around and said this, however long ago it was, and it went all viral and stuff online. And, oh, I'm a racist. Oh, this is terrible. You can't say that it's largely foreign-looking men who are harassing you. I'm like, but it is. I have eyes and ears. I can tell they're not exactly born in, you know, Cheltenham. It is foreign people. They're even wearing the sort of, you know, different clothes and stuff and hanging around in groups without any British-looking friends. I know what I can see. I can, you know, I've got a brain. Oh, no, it's a dreadful thing to say. You can't say that. That is racist. That is awful. And then there are also people going, this has never happened to me. You know, there are some commentators. There's one particular KC, some woke woman KC, who's always sticking in her, or leftist that she is. This has never happened to me. I'm like, that's because you're like the same age as Methuselah, all right? If you are, you know, built like white goods or 1,000 years old, they're probably not going to follow you down the street. But believe you me, and I'm getting on a bit myself these days, I'm not exactly fresh out of the blimmin' traps, which is why I worry so much for our teenage girls. But if you've got blonde hair, it is like a magnet for these people. They see that hair and they're after you. And so, believe me, my own lived experience, to coin a favourite term of the left, is enough for me to know about the statistics behind the next story, which is sex crimes by foreign nationals have surged. Would you believe? Let's speak now to Lucy White, public policy specialist. Welcome aboard, Lucy. Great to have you back on the show. Now let's talk about some of these statistics. The number of sexual offence convictions of foreign nationals has increased by 62% in 4 years. Interesting, because it's 4 years that my own lived experience has sort of scared up as the scale for how bad things has got. What do you think is going on behind all of this? Why has it gone up so much?
Hi, Alex. Yeah, it's gone up because we have imported, unfortunately, many illegal migrants. We know that on average, well, since Keir Starmer came into power, there's now been 52,000 illegal migrants that have come across. And the think tank, the Centre for Migration Control, research led by Robert Bates, they've shown us that not only that there's been a 62% increase in foreign national convictions, but also in London itself, as you were just explaining with Earl's Court. So across London, foreign nationals account for 47% of all sex offences, yet they are 25% of the population. So there's an overrepresentation of sex offences by foreign nationals. No surprise there, though, is there?
So my assumption here is, like you're saying, that once upon a time, if you're looking, of course, when you say foreign nationals, that's anybody not from Britain. And if you're getting a load of people like we did about 10, 15 years ago, who are coming from Poland, you know, Christian countries, basically, where they've got a similar ethos towards family morality and women as we do, then they're probably less likely to become sexual predators and pests. But if you're getting a load of men all of a sudden from cultures where, first of all, women who don't believe in their religion are treated as, you know, lower than dogs, and secondly, they haven't even seen a bare ankle ever since birth, then probably if you bring them over to the land of Bonnie Blue, you're going to end up with a pretty nasty toxic combination.
Yeah, precisely. So we've also seen this story today of a Syrian refugee named Hassan assaulted a 19-year-old girl. This was back in 2022, but it's only...
It sounds like you may need support.
It's only just sort of...
Okay, let me know if I can help.
It's only just come... That was my Siri.
I think that was your Siri's getting in on the edge. I thought that was me going a bit mad there, and I was like, what? Are the medications like beginning to give me voices in my head? But I like the fact that Siri is all in it. You know, they want to help us stop the boats. Thank you, Siri. Do carry on, my darling.
So with this Syrian refugee named Hassan, so there's three things to point out here. So number one is that we know that Syrians are 6 times more likely to commit sexual assaults than British nationals, and that's researched by the Centre for Migration Control. We also know that in Syria, polygamy is legal under Sharia law, where men can have up to 4 wives. So again, the crazy story of this Hassan who assaulted a 19-year-old is that when he went to court, his wife actually joined him and supported him. What wife supports their husband when they have sexually assaulted a girl. And the third thing is the regime, the Assad regime in Syria fell in December 2024. So the refugees should start going back to Syria. The fact that they are still here is not great. And what we need to start doing, Alex, is naming and shaming these lawyers who are defending sexual assaulted men who commit sexual assault. So the lawyer in this case was called Graham Gilbert, and his excuse was, well, Hassan, who is from Syria, he suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder, and therefore if we send him to jail, his conditions will get worse. You know, all the rubbish that we've heard before. However, we're very lucky in this case that there was a judge named Robert Paulson who said, nope, not having any of this. This Syrian man is going to jail. Thank you, Judge Robert Paulson. We need more like you.
Exactly. Good. I'm glad we're actually giving someone some applause, because I think that's very important. Let's stick with the sex crimes for a moment here, because there is a common denominator, right? And this is what a lot of people, they don't want to say it. They don't want to talk about it. Soon enough, they're going to outlaw the saying of this. But the thing that seems to unite a lot of these men who come over with their misogynistic viewpoints, who basically have not had any sexual liberty in their home country, who look at and fetishize white Western women as easy access, come along, have a bit of fun with them, that doesn't matter. Plus you're sort of, you know, hard done by wife and kids back at home, will just have to shut up and put up, or they'll probably get, you know, a clip round the ear at the very least. These countries have something in common, don't they? And what is in common with these countries is they are culturally Muslim, and many of them very fundamentally Muslim. Now, I'm someone who's lived around the world a lot. I used to live in the Muslim part of Accra in Ghana, and a very lovely neighbourhood it was too. You do get very different forms of Islam practiced, and culturally Muslim nations that are different from others. But when you look at a lot of these countries in the Middle East and North Africa, by gum, their attitudes underpinned by their ideology are massively out of step with our own. And yet we're still not talking about this.
Yeah, of course, it's absolutely disgraceful. I'm also a spokesperson for the Women's Safety Initiative, WSI, which I know yourself, Alex, you're also a supporter of the organisation. It's really important that we have organisations such as WSI, because otherwise you have you know, girls in our country who are being sexually targeted on a daily basis by men who come from cultures that are not compatible with ours. And nobody is speaking up for us. We saw with the Pakistani grooming gangs that the police tried to cover it. We've seen that the authorities are not listening to us in the name of, you know, diversity and multiculturalism. So we have to keep calling it out. But we really need our police, our judges to actually stand up for us when it comes to it.
Yeah, and I'd actually like to see members of the Muslim community lend their voice to this as well, because it's all very well suddenly protecting them and going, oh, well, don't offend them, don't upset them. Guess what? Islam isn't much fun for a lot of women. You know, a lot of women find they don't have the same rights as men under that religion. A lot of women in this country might actually be quite happy if we suddenly started standing up for them as well in their own communities. Thank you ever so much for joining me, Lucy. Before I let you go, what's your experience been like as a woman in all of this? What sort of things have happened to you? Because Samara and I, when we compare notes, it's like a blimmin' living dystopia.
Yeah, precisely. Well, I used to live in Islington, which is the sort of, you know, capital of the Liberals. But I don't live there anymore. And I just found that, particularly around the Arsenal Stadium, there were lots of migrant employees in the Arsenal Stadium and lots of workers, construction workers in that area, that when I would leave my house, either to go to the tube station or on my bike, I was just stared at, and I felt so uncomfortable. I actually don't go back to that area anymore, and that's part of the reason why I moved out, right sort of by the Arsenal Stadium. It's horrid. And I also feel, you know, working around Westminster, you are in the heart of the political capital of London, and yet there are horrible people all by the River Thames. You have those sort of, what are they called? Those bikes, the men on those bikes with the carriages behind.
Oh, yeah, those tuk-tuk things, whatever they are, the blaring music where they charge you £5,000 to go 5 metres.
Exactly. And I just feel very uncomfortable when I'm in the UK. I also find it dictates what I feel comfortable to wear around the city. I feel if I'm in certain clothes, I feel that, you know, you shouldn't be made to feel this way, but you feel that they will come after you, they will follow you. You know, I've had cases in an Uber driver before where my taxi driver was speaking in a foreign language on a video call to a woman while he was driving me around, and I felt so unsafe. And that's why, for example, with the Women's Safety Initiative, we are calling for CCTV in all taxis, because young girls such as us, you and I, Alex, we shouldn't be made to feel unsafe in our own city. And I've been speaking with a lot of my friends, and a lot of us are planning to leave London because our quality of life has been jeopardized. We are not comfortable. I'm fed up of being stared at, quite frankly. I'm fed up of not hearing English in my own country, and I'm fed up of not seeing other English people around.
Girl, you can come join my little right-wing enclave of common sense that I'm setting up in the West Country. You'd be much, much welcome there. You know, I totally agree with you. I sent my other half a message the other day saying I've put on a really nice summer frock to go for a walk. And I said I haven't done that in ages because, like you, when I was in London, I would know if I put on a little strappy dress. It was boiling hot down the Shire the other day. If I put on a little strappy dress and walked up Earl's Court Road, it'd be like running the gauntlet. You're asking for trouble. And you suddenly realise you are adapting your behaviour, deciding what time you leave the house, what you wear, whether you've got makeup on, whether you've even got high heels on, because that clip-clop of a high heel is like some sort of siren call to these sexual predators. And you suddenly realise, you know, that I walked around in my little summer dress and someone shouted over the road at me. And it was actually a woman going, "Your dress is really nice, love." It was the most refreshing thing ever. And I thought, this is what it's supposed to be like. So, Lucy, my darling, when you're ready to get up and get out properly, you speak to me. I'll hook you up with a good gaff. The wonderful Lucy White there, public policy specialist. Right, now we're going to be talking about one of my other favourite DEI events. Oh, yes. Roll up, roll up. Let's celebrate the wonders of multiculturalism and diversity in the United Kingdom, because it's been the greatest spectacle of them all. And don't you worry, the body count this year has been much lower. More arrests ever than before. The Notting Hill Carnival. We're going to be talking about that with the fantastic Norman Brennan, former police officer, after this.
It's not just UCL, so many universities. I mean, you'll be hard-pressed to find a university that has said we will be upholding the Supreme Court ruling. But in my opinion, the real story here is the fact that these academics that you say are remaining anonymous because they're fearful of being vilified by their colleagues. I think it's so cowardly, and academics, and I understand, and I do to an extent sympathise with the fear, and I know full well the consequences that come with expressing the opinion that women have the right to single-sex spaces.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, hello and welcome back to the show. Dean, my weekend producer, has just messaged me to tell me to stop moaning on air. All right, Dean, calm down. Sorry, my earpiece is coming out. Moaning about that now, aren't I? Right, OK, while I fiddle about with my ear, let me tee up what is coming up now, because we're going to be talking about the Notting Hill Carnival. Hundreds arrested, 2 people stabbed, dozens nicked for taking weapons into the iconic party, as the Sun calls it. We do love the Sun, but iconic party is not the words that I would necessarily use to describe it. Hullabaloo is a polite way of putting it. Let's speak now to Norman Brennan, former police officer, knife crime campaigner. I mean, Norman, we say it every year, don't we? Why on earth do they still allow this thing to take place in the heart of a residential area? It's not good for the people going. At some point, there's going to be a stampede and a load of people are going to get crushed. It's not good for local businesses, which all have to get boarded up. It's not good for the local residents. Frankly, it's not good for anybody. You move it to somewhere like Hyde Park and turn it into like a mini Glastonbury. You can have more food stalls, better sound equipment, facilitated in the entrances and exits so you can make sure that people aren't able to bring guns and knives to the party. And everyone lucks out. Everyone has a better time. And yet, year after year, they don't do this. I'm almost now willing for the day to come that something happens that makes them actually wake up and realise they've got to get with the programme.
Well, I don't know how many murders we actually need. Apparently, whether the carnival in Notting Hill is deemed successful or not is how many people have actually been murdered or stabbed. I don't know another event in the world that would actually be using that sort of gauge or parameters. Let me just be clear about the actual numbers. It wasn't 423 arrests. It was, in fact, 523, because prior to the event, the Met Police did a major crime initiative and they raided dozens and dozens of houses. They arrested 100 people. They seized 11 firearms and 40 weapons. In the weekend that we've just seen, there were 32 assaults on police officers and another 46 weapons were seized. So the arrests were 523 in total. It's outrageous. I don't know another Glastonbury, all the other events, the Reading Festival, we never get these stats. So I state again, what event in the world is gauged on success or failure on the amount of murders that are committed during the 2 or 3 day events?
Why is it, Norman, that, you know, despite all the warnings, despite the year after year after year, seeing crime, seeing antisocial behaviour, seeing the impact on the local economy, why on earth are we still having this argument and why is it not being moved?
Well, because Mayor Khan won't ban it. Mayor Khan has his favourites, and the carnival, the Caribbean Carnival, is one of his favourites. He even found another £1 million to give to stewarding of the event this time, because the police last year complained that they just didn't have the staff. There were 7,000 police officers from the Met, City of London, British Transport Police, and I don't doubt that several other forces, mutual benefits that they often exchange to police this event. It costs upwards of £5-6 million, I don't know. And all of those officers, Alex, were taken away from already beleaguered boroughs. Now, I policed the carnival many times as both a police officer in uniform, as a detective, and we dreaded the event. We absolutely dreaded it because it was not a very pleasant place to police. There were gangs just waiting to stab each other that we were monitoring behind the scenes, that we saw them travelling all over London, and we couldn't wait for it to finish. And it's sad, really, because there's so many hundreds of thousands of people that attend there not to cause trouble, but to enjoy the event. But we absolutely dreaded it. And it's the main part of where the stabbings and shootings and murders happen are normally late on the Monday night when it's just about to close and nighttime falls. That's where all of our hackles are normally up.
Wrap it up. Norman, thank you ever so much. Fantastic getting you back on the programme. Hopefully one day common sense will prevail. Right, we're going to take a short break now, but don't go anywhere because I'm back just after this.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back. Sorry for that longer than usual break. Having a few audio issues of my own in here. You know what it's like? You're back after 2 weeks and your earpiece ain't working and it's just never rains but it pours. Let's do some of your messages. Now I'm going to be taking some calls, and if you would like to throw in your 2-bit, the number is 03444991000. That is the number indeed to dial. Derek, thank you for your message. You just say, well done, young lady. What for? What have I done? Welcome back, Alex. Thank you. Nigel should have answered to the woke mainstream media. What would you do or say if we didn't deport someone and they sexually assaulted your wife or child? Point well made by Ian in Walsall. Alex, I'm over 70 years old and have therefore had 60 years of the professionals running the country. Over the past 30 years, at least, the country has been steered towards the lowest common denominator. So I say give the amateurs a chance. I don't know if by that you mean a Reform UK who have never been elected to government before, but I'm going to take it that that is what you might mean. We don't need a new Bill of Rights. We have the English Constitution and Bill of Rights of 1689. If these idiots write a new Bill of Rights, it'll be full of woke rubbish and will enshrine 0 important rights for the English, Scottish, Welsh or Northern Irish. England didn't appear after World War II. We do have a history before then, you know. I always say this, why do you need any of these human rights things? You've just got law. You've got criminal law. Don't go murder someone. There you go. Doesn't matter what colour of the skin you have or they have or whatever else. Just don't murder people, right? Criminal law covers the vast majority of it, in my humble opinion. Nick in Cornwall says, Alex, you discussed with Layla, who's the Westminster councillor for Reform UK, the implementation timeframe for reforms proposed illegal migrant legislation announced today. This timeframe may be usurped by the issue, arguably the bigger issue Nigel touched on today, which is the timing of the next general election. Nigel said the 30-year bond market is giving us a somewhat different indication to 2029. They may not last quite as long as you think. Well, if they crash the economy, we have to go down to the IMF. You'd imagine we should also therefore be able to go to the ballot box. Hi, Alex. Great question about the expediency of implementation of the reform plan. During that speech, Zia Youssef was on stage, and I'm mystified why that should be. Does Layla know? I don't know. I don't know if Layla knows, I can't ask her now. Someone else has said, Alex, this is all very encouraging, but how will reform work with the House of Lords? They have potential to stop all legislation for at least a year by sending back amendments and until the Parliament Act could be used to force the legislation. Well, this is the problem. You know, when Nigel turned around and said, look, we don't have any peers in the House of Lords, we got 4 MPs and nobody representing us in the Lords, and what's more, we're polling the highest in the country, and we now control 10 councils up and down the country. So Keir Starmer went, yeah, never mind, you ain't gonna have any anyway. Yeah. Of course they're not going to suddenly enable reform to have peers, and it is the second house. They can get in the way of the passage of legislation, not indefinitely, but they can certainly scupper the progress of the application of a new bit of policy. Let's speak now to Paula, who's in High Barnet. Hello there, Paula.
Hi, Alex. You cracked me up. You were talking about when being the blonde, being fair skin, being blonde, and you know when you walk in Earl's Court and South Kensington. I've had the same problem, and I'm older than you, and I'm quite petite. And I mean, it's happened on TfL a few times, and I've had to report it to the BTP. But even when I was overseas, so I was in Oman, and a man approached me. I was just going to the bat machine across from the hotel, was dressed like a slob, you know, big T-shirt, leggings, and if I was well covered, went out to the bat machine, and a man approached me in his attire, local attire, and he spoke in English. He said, you go hotel? I said, yeah, me go hotel. And he said, you, me, go hotel together? And I said, no, you and me no go hotel together. I'm married and I'm not. But I had to repeat myself twice.
Yeah.
And I didn't get angry. I didn't get angry because I thought, this is what he's believing. This is what he's heard, you know, about Western women. And but over here near Russell Square, my other half dropped me off one morning, and it was about 7:30, 7:45 near UCL. And this man just appeared out of nowhere from a cafe, started walking and talking to me, and I think he was from Asia, maybe Turkey or somewhere. I'm not sure, but. And then he started talking to me, and again, I'm very polite. And then he asked me, do I have children? I say no, and you'll be a good mother, and you'll be a wonderful wife. And I was like, oh, my God, please get me out of here. And then as we turned the corner, and I was crossing the road, I said, I've got to go to work now, bye-bye. And he said, oh. And he said, can I kiss you? And I said, certainly not. And this is just...
But no, we laugh, right? But the thing is, the thing that worries me about this is it's really creepy. Look, they don't. English isn't their first language. Our culture isn't their culture. They don't understand the rules of engagement. They don't understand all those sort of unwritten rules of etiquette and cultural mores that someone native-born does. And so, you know, you can't necessarily blame them, and also blame them for being opportunists, particularly when, you know, whatever sort of filthy adult content they've seen online, they probably think people who look like me and you are good for a go, don't they?
And I'm an older woman. So I can't even imagine how it is for the young girls, you know, travelling on the tube. I mean, even going down the Tottenham Court Road at 7:30 in the morning. Yeah. I have knitting needles in my bag because I like to knit. But I know because someone tailgated me at Warren Street, and it was a guy from, you know, he wasn't local, and he didn't understand English, and he tailgated me. Of course, I stopped, and I shouldn't have, and I shouted gate crash. I shouted gate crash instead of tailgater, but the TfL staff just didn't do anything.
They don't. But this is what worries me as well in the middle of all of this is our young girls at school, our 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds are being predominantly told two different things. On one side, on social media, They're being told that female empowerment is to essentially look like a porn star, to get big lips, a big bottom, that Kardashian look, to pose, to pout, to flaunt yourself on social media. That sort of this sexual, extreme sexual permissiveness and liberalisation is in some way good for them and good for womanity. It is not. So on one hand, they're being sort of given all of that. Oh, look, you can be like Bonnie Blue and make money out of selling your body. You can be on OnlyFans. You can be an influencer. And then on the other hand, they're being told that when you see these young men from these countries, these refugees, some of them being made to write love letters to them. Oh, they're poor victims. You've got to be nice to them or you're a racist. It is so dangerous.
Bonnie Blue doesn't help our situation, to be honest, and she's free to do what she wants, but it just doesn't help us. So, you know, and the other thing I wanted to say is I love your show. I love how you conduct yourself. You're very humorous, and you're a fellow Capricorn.
I'm a Boxing Day baby, me. Honestly, you know, born 6 hours early, and I'd have shared a birthday with the late great JC. I popped out a week early. I think I really I could smell that Christmas dinner from within the womb, and I was there. Anyway, Paula, wonderful.
Thank you.
It's been lovely talking to you, my darling. Let's catch up again soon, and stay safe. Stay safe in London. Let's speak now to Simon, who's in Kent. Hi there, Simon.
Hello, gorgeous. You are beautiful, by the way.
Oh, what? Have you just come off a boat or something?
No, don't be stupid.
That's all right.
No, I'd just like to say, fantastic press conference today from Nigel and Zia Youssef in tow. One issue they didn't address was how far retrospectively will this immigration policy reside?
Yeah. No, that is a question I actually asked Layla Cunningham, because I wanted to know myself, is this going to be, from the moment reform gets into number 10, should they get into number 10, that from that moment on, bam, you come illegally and you're being deported? Or is it going to apply to the 56-odd thousand who've come this year and the 50-odd thousand who came the year before et al? And not just people who've come on boats. Is it going to apply to people who've come illegally via aircraft, on the backs of lorries, people who have been here for a long time, just living amongst the cracks, working in the sort of dark? I don't know that. I don't know whether this is going to be come one, come all, or whether it's going to be from a particular moment in time.
Is it from day one of a reform government, or will it be enacted retrospectively? Can we readdress these awards of what is it they call it? Indefinite leave to remain. Can we revisit that? Can we see, like, the spurious claims that on the third or fourth appeal, suddenly you have a Damascene Convention to Christianity or homosexuality in order to avoid deportation, or you join a Nigerian terrorist organisation that's not outlawed in the UK but is in Nigeria, to send you back would put you in jeopardy. Can we get some clarification, because you are linked to the reform hierarchy? Can we have some clarification on this, please? Because unless it is retrospective and we can disavow these awards that have been made by this Labour government and the future awards that are going to be made before the next general election, unless we can get rid of those, it's empty words, I feel.
Yeah, no, well, do you know what? It was a question. If I had been sitting at that press conference as a member of the press pack, that is the question I would have asked, rather than saying, what if someone gets sent back and they get tortured? And... like, what? That's not our problem, is it? They've been sent back. They got here illegally. Done. They're in their home country. Loads of people around the world are not having a good time. It is not our responsibility to look after all of them. Anyway, Simon, thank you ever so much for your call. It's been fantastic catching up with you. Alex, it's good to have you back on the airwaves. I was cheering as you were sticking it to the sickeningly woke press at the Reform UK conference today. I was very impressed with Nigel Farage and Reform, says John in Sutton. Hi, Alex. Just cut off the benefits. You'll be surprised how many will be going home, says Derek. I've always said this. I'm like, if you just make life less pleasurable less of a free-for-all for these people. If you make it very clear that they don't get to live in the United Kingdom, as they might want to live back at home, if you ban the burqa, for instance, if you suddenly say we're not going to have faith schools, you've got to mix with other kids, regardless of their backgrounds. If you suddenly say we're not going to pay your benefits until you've paid into the country's coffers for, I don't know, 10 years and past a certain threshold. You can't use the NHS until you've paid into the coffers. You can't get social if you just took away all those things and said this is for British citizens only, guess what? They probably wouldn't want to stick around. Well, the Taliban are in charge, so it's OK to do a deal with them. We gave millions to France and they did nothing, says Gaz from Wales about the fact that the Taliban have sent out a cheeky little press statement to the Telegraph saying, yeah, we can't wait to do business with Nigel Farage, or something to that effect. And mark my words, Sir Keir Starmer is going to love riffing on that one at PMQs, isn't he? Dan from Kent says, I'm gutted being a long-life Tory, pro-capitalist. I feel so sorry for Kemi. She needs to swallow her pride and offer Farage the leadership and reform MPs, cabinet ministers. It's the only way to secure a common-sense government of the future. The thing is about the Conservative Party is they ain't going to do that. They ain't going to capitulate and suddenly go, let's get together and work together. They just can't help it. They're dyed-in-the-wool party apparatchiks. They're sort of very party political, aren't they? All these men coming across on the boats, why can't we put them in the army to serve our country for years or go back? I wouldn't want them in the army, mate. Really? You want to get all these people coming from these terrorist countries? You want to just give them access to free weapons and highly classified military bases? No thanks. They're serving in their own armies, I'm sure, some of them. Aren't we in an illegal immigration pandemic? We spent billions in the COVID pandemic to keep us safe, but as of yet the current government hasn't announced any plans for new immigration camps or to stop strangers roaming the streets, says Nathan. Hi Alex, Nigel Farage should reply to the Taliban. It's OK, your Afghan citizens will be safe in France. We don't deal with terrorist states. The problem is, unfortunately, when it comes to this, you can't turn around and, pull out of Afghanistan like we did and enable the Taliban to take control and then just go, oh, well, then we're just going to brush that under the carpet and pretend that didn't happen. You've either got to say, if we're going to deport people back to Afghanistan, right, what do you want? And be prepared to do some sort of negotiation, or you ain't going to be able to deport people back. And that's just the truth of the situation. Hi Alex, regarding establishment resistance to reform's illegal migration policy, if people are fed up now, think about how they're going to feel in 4 years' time. Even the establishment will be forced to realise that resistance is useless. Well, this is what I mean. But the thing is about the establishment is that they live in some sort of parallel universe, don't they, where they sympathise with the perpetrators of offences and our enemies and people who are hostile to our way of life, rather than actually empathise with their own people, the sons and the daughters of their next-door neighbours. I literally have no idea. This minority ruling elite, I've got no idea psychologically how they got to the point that they're at. It makes no sense to me. Right. We're going to take a short break now. Thank you for your calls and messages. By the way, you can keep them coming in. Register your interest to speak to me because we're going to be taking a lot more calls in the final chunk of the show. 03444991000 is the number to dial. It's your normal network rate. You can also use that number to send me a WhatsApp message or leave me a voice note on WhatsApp. 87222 is the number to send me a text message. Right talk before you text. And we're on X at talkTV. Now, when I come back, we're going to be discussing the plan to create a definition of Islamophobia and why one Muslim campaigner says that actually it will make things much worse. That's after this.
unveiled this morning was the most radical immigration policy in British history. And that will set the debate now for weeks and months and possibly years to come. I'm pretty immersed in this stuff. I know how radical reform wants to be. I was really impressed by just how far he is pledging to go. What he's talking about here, deporting hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants, is a massive undertaking.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Righto, now you'd have heard plenty of times before that the Labour Party are pushing on ahead under the auspicious guidance of Dominic Grieve, former Conservative Attorney General, bonehead in chief, to create a definition of Islamophobia. So I've got two things to say about this. First of all, a phobia is an irrational fear, right? When you have a religion that throughout history has tried to massacre you, invade you, that's behind the vast majority of terrorism in the country, and as a woman expects you to dress up like a ghost and not show your bonce to the world, I don't think it is particularly irrational to be a bit worried about it getting a major foothold in your country. But I don't know, who am I to talk? So that's my first thought. Now, the second thought is, what is this supposed to do anyway? Like, why can't we just criticise things anymore? Like I said before, we have legislation in place, criminal legislation. Don't push people, don't murder people, don't nick from people, don't harass people. You know, all of that exists, right? We don't need it to exist in particular for one particular subset of people. It is a ridiculous situation, which is essentially going to be blasphemy by the back door. What is interesting, though, is a chappie called Fayaz Mughal, who's the founder of the Tell Mama organisation, which is actually an organisation that campaigns against anti-Muslim hate. So this is the guy, basically, who should be all for a definition of Islamophobia. But oh no! Our chappie Fayaz here has turned around and warned Angela Rayner that her plans to adopt a formal definition of Islamophobia will create a two-tier society. Angela, our Ange, when she's not on a dinghy down in her £800,000 third home, has set up a council to help advise on drawing up an official government's definition of anti-Muslim discrimination. A definition of the term from 2018, which was adopted by Labour, has been criticised for being so widely drawn that it risks creating a blasphemy law and would stifle legitimate criticism of Islam. Fayaz Mughal, the founder of the Tell Mama organisation, said it could stifle debate about grooming gang scandals, the role of the hijab, niqab and Sharia courts. Well, he sounds like a pretty good egg to me. Let's speak to someone else who's an even better egg. It's my good friend Momus Najmi, who's a writer, commentator and apostate, a.k.a. a former Muslim himself and a very outspoken critic of his former religion. It is fantastic to have you on the show. I mean, you and I have spoken about this privately between ourselves, but why is it so dangerous to create a definition of Islamophobia?
Two main reasons. One is that you legitimize Islam as a religion, that you say, yeah, it is a valid religion. And the second is that you're accepting that some form of Islam is here to stay. Right? This, for me, is why it's dangerous, because we're accepting wrong ideas. We're accepting a religion that is set up against the West in its ideology, and we are legitimizing it. We are saying, like, no, like, you know, people who actually believe in such things have a legitimate claim to those ideas and the right to live over here and practice those things and hide amongst them, intentionally or unintentionally, hide amongst them extremist activists who will act upon those ideologies, right? That's why it's dangerous. The other part why it's dangerous is obviously for people like me, or for people, or any thinking person, right? Any thinking person who wants to criticize. This can be used by the government to shut people down. Even the government, like especially the Labour Party, doesn't have to be that much motivated by religious hate or anything like that, trying to shut down religious hate or something. I think so they're just motivated by their Marxist and their communist mindset, right? Because they can use these tools, safeguarding against religious hatred, to shut down debate, legitimate debate and legitimate concerns against and voices raising against their government, right? And criticism against their government. So they can use that as a tool as well.
I mean, what I'm going to say in response to this is, look, what you've said, it's to sort of mainstream media ears, let's say, legacy media ears, would be absolutely controversial, you know, sort of saying, well, you know, but Islam's not making Islam a legitimate religion over here, saying that these people have a right to live here. If I was from the legacy media, I'd be like, but hold on, Islam is one of the major world religions, and there's plenty of Muslims who live here. Are you saying that Muslims shouldn't be allowed to live in Britain? That's, of course, what they would say from The Guardian. And so I put that to you because we are in a situation now where, like it or not, we do have plenty of mosques in this country. We've got millions of Muslims in this country. We've got people who are voted in by the Muslim community to be Muslim MPs in the Houses of Parliament.
Yeah, I mean, we need to find a way not to coexist, but we need to find a way to, I think so, for Britain to exist as its own, in its own natural state. And if those people may be Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, or whoever, they want to comply to the base culture of Britain, then it's fine. But they must not bring their own culture and impose upon the nation, right? So all these mosques, in my point of view, all these mosques needs to be investigated. A lot of them need to be shut down. A lot of things that these Muslims go on about and have these ideas and then can, you know, promulgate those ideas into society, should not be allowed to happen. We should not have a monarch who is a patron of an Oxford College of Islamic Studies in Britain since the 1990s. These things should not happen. We should not have halal meat, and you know, all of these things should not happen over here. So yes, we have a situation.
There'd be people who would say, you hear this all the time, this is like, well, the favourite little sort of, you know, cliche comment from the leftists now is, those aren't British values. British values are being a tolerant and accepting nation.
You know what the actual values should be? They should be of Alfred and his kin, who did not just accept Vikings, right? They did not accept the culture of Viking invaders. They gave them a choice and they, you know, tried to assimilate them, but they didn't just roll over them, right? He was a proper, pious, believing Christian, a courageous man, right? That's the kind of leadership that we need. That's the kind of culture we should have. That's the kind of values we should have, which would not bend its knees, which would not degrade itself for others.
Why is it that, you know, we're all sitting here and the Labour Party's having some debate over a definition of Islamophobia, but we're not doing it for Buddhismophobia or Sikhophobia or Vedicophobia or Hinduophobia, or, you know, we're not doing it for anything else. Why is it that
we're not doing it now? I think so. We're not doing it now, but like, you know, when push comes to shove, we might start doing that as well, right? Like, because you see in Australia, I saw in Australia somewhere that the Sikhs over there were like 1 million Sikhs in a city or somewhere, and they were trying to change the name of the lake in that area to their Sikh name or something like that, right? So this kowtowing will happen once the numbers increase. It just so happens that the Muslims are in more majority than other minorities, so they have like more of a hold. So I think so it's like once you have started this process of bending your knee, it becomes a habit then for a nation, right? So this is why it needs to stop here before it becomes problematic everywhere else, right? But as well, like, you know, when Angela Rayner gave that statement in March this year, I think so the first sentence of that statement was already very telling, right? Because she said in that statement, the government has established a working group to provide a definition of anti-Muslim hatred / Islamophobia. That again is like combining people with ideology. And also she said, like, chaired by, like, obviously Right Honorable Dominic Grieve, right? So that was very telling, because that showed that the whole of the liberal elite and the whole of the establishment has already agreed between themselves that Islam is here to stay, and we have to make some allowances for them, right? And they have been doing that for years and years and years, and it has come to this point now where you can't even criticize their religion, right? That's where it's come down to. So when you start on this path of appeasement, this is where it leads down to. It doesn't matter if it's Islam or if it's Hinduism, it's Sikhism, whatever it might be. If it's like black people being portrayed as like, Anglo-Saxons now, I've seen in BBC, series and stuff, like, all sorts of these sort of things will happen, right?
Yeah, they already are happening, Mamas. That is the problem. We've already got elbow deep into a lot of that DEI nonsense, haven't we? And critical race theory and all the rest of it. It's always great catching up with you. You're a brilliant man. Thank you ever so much for giving your voice to the debate. It's we need more like you, Mamas. We really, really do. But we're going to take a cheeky little break now. Before I do, I'm going to read some of your messages, so I've got a bit of time to kill. Hi, Alex. Isn't it funny? The UK went to war to help allies in Europe. We stood for them all against Germany for the whole time of 6 years. And yet now they want to destroy us. I can't get my head around it. You and me both. Chris in Surrey says, welcome back, Alex. Muchly missed. I hope you're feeling better. Thank you so much. You need to take Cardi P to task for accusing you of being more untidy than a 5-year-old having a tantrum. Do you know, he's got a point. To be honest, sometimes I just scatter my paperwork asunder in a fit of madness. Right, I'm back after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, welcome back to the show. That's it, we're in the final hour. I thoroughly enjoyed being back, actually, my first 2 hours after a period of rest and recuperation, much needed. I'll tell you what, moving house. I mean, that ain't easy, is it? Oh, no, it's not. Glad I've done it, though. Very much glad I've done it. But blimmin' heck, I thought I was going to end up bald as a coot as well. Seriously. Like, my hair was coming out in handfuls. Stressful old business, that. My skin did not care for it. There's little Miss Scratch and Itch. But look at me now. Am I scratching? Oh, no, I'm not. I'm scratch-free. Right, if something's going to get me hot under the collar and itchy and uncomfortable again, it's probably this next story, because just being a woman in 2025, I mean, for crying out loud, should be easier than this, right? It was about 100 years ago that women were chucking themselves in front of horses at the races to get us the vote, equal pay and all that. You know, by now we should be, I don't know, bossing it at life, feeling really comfortable in our own skins. We should have the world at our feet. It should be a brilliant time to be a woman in the 21st century in the Western world. But it isn't, is it? And I don't know what's got in to the left wing, but they seem to hate us. They seem to be the misogynists in chief, whether it's chucking young girls and women under the bus at the altar of political correctness. Oh, down to accept certain minority communities. Don't matter about all those rapists. It's best not to be considered slightly xenophobic. Whether it's actually just dispelling this myth that there's not particular sexual harassment and particular crimes against women by particular subsets of society. And, you know, the grooming gangs is the absolute pinnacle of how woefully, disgustingly, willfully myopic and ignorant that was. Or whether it's this sort of pornification. Oh, I know, let's make a little programme called Adolescence, all about some sort of kid who goes a bit wonky watching Andrew Tate. No, how about we do something about the fact that there's hardcore pornography everywhere? That an 8-year-old can just go on their phone and, I mean, they brought in this online safety bill, which as far as I can tell doesn't do anything apart from want to regulate what you say on X. I'll tell you what would have been a good approach. Ban user-generated porn websites. If you want to watch adult content, go and watch licensed adult content. Go get yourself a DVD or pay good money and give your passport details to prove your age to a website with verified actors and actresses, all right? I'm not like a modern-day Mary Whitehouse, although I am a little bit. But look, I get that some people have their own tastes and want to see stuff that I wouldn't necessarily want to see and don't agree with, but fine, we live in a free society. But what you can't have is any old person chucking up any old video, because you don't know the provenance of it. You don't know if that woman's been trafficked. You don't know if she's been secretly filmed. You know, it's basically the industrialisation of widespread sexual abuse. But is the government doing anything about that? Could they? Yes, they actually could, because believe you me, those websites aren't very easy to access if you go to Pakistan. But no, let's have a hypersexualised society where we're telling young girls that it's actually empowering to be an OnlyFans model. And then, of course, on the other side of this, you've got the whole trans debate, because let's be real, a lot of the men in Fox are not people who are struggling with their gender identity. They're people who once upon a time we might have called societally oddballs, and that's putting it mildly. People who get a little bit of a sexual kick out of wearing panties and being in the women's toilets. Exactly the people you don't want in the women's toilets. And the whole women's sports thing, I mean, it goes on and on. This should be an era where women are thriving. We're holding down jobs. We're bringing up children. We're becoming Prime Minister, okay? And yet, more than ever before, society is turning its back on the protection of women and girls, and particularly the mad leftists who think they're on the right side of history, who shower themselves in moral rectitude and think they're the good guys, but are actually the ones who are basically walking lockstep with perverts and rapists. I just don't understand how these people can live with the cognitive dissonance. I really don't. Anyway, despite there being, of course, the Supreme Court ruling that said, guess what, a woman's a woman, and that cannot be changed, ever. Doesn't matter how many times you go under the knife, you're born a woman. Whatever bits and bobs you cut off and replace, you're still a woman, because that's just your DNA. There you go, end of. We discovered DNA a blimmin' long time ago now, and that's been in textbooks for the best part of 5 decades. No, the universities, because they know best, don't they? All those do-gooder professors, they've decided they're just going to ignore it. And it turns out that female students now are still going to be forced to share toilets and changing rooms with biological males as universities ignore the legal definition of a woman. This is coming from senior staff. Women at University College London, who want to remain anonymous for fear of being vilified by colleagues, have revealed the institution has continued to allow trans women to use female facilities. What is wrong with these people that they think they're above the law, and when it comes to the sanctity and the integrity of women, that they think it's okay to push us about and bully us? Well, there's a name for people like you. The word is misogynist. Let's speak now to Marilyn Halls, who is the CEO of Freedom from Abuse. Marilyn, this isn't just a slap in the face. This isn't just an insult and a betrayal of women. This is blimmin' well risky, isn't it?
It's illegal. The Supreme Court ruled it. It's illegal. We've had incidents where men have said they're women and they've gone into female prisons and they've gone, oh, you know, I'm not John anymore, I'm Jane. And they've got, and I know situations where this has happened, unless you've had your genitalia removed and you've had all the drug stuff that is necessary and you have a certificate that said you are now officially whatever it is, but in my eyes, and I'm of an older generation, and I am sure there are genuinely a few people that are being born into the wrong body, but I don't think it's as bad as society tries to make out. I think there are creeps that are trying to, as you say, manipulate a situation. But we have seen men who say they're women go into female prisons with everything working, thank you very much, insisting on going into female showers with all their parts working. No, you are not transgender. You may be cross-dressing, but we are talking here of vulnerable 18-year-old children, you know, very young adults, going to university to study, and they are being forced to use these toilets. It's outrageous.
Well,
I mean, women are not being protected. They never have been protected because of the misogyny and I would send anyone who's woke and politically correct on this issue, I'd send them to Mars on a one-way ticket, because this is not looking after those youngsters who happen to be clients of the university because they are paying the tuition fees. And they have a right to say, no, thank you. If you want to do this, you have a transgender toilet for all the maybes, the maybe freaks or whatever. You go and use that, but you don't subject young women who are mainly 18 into this situation and force them to do it. It's outrageous. Yeah. Absolutely outrageous.
But also, why is the onus always put on women, right? If Terence wants to put on a sequin frock and gamble about and go to the bog and call himself Teresa and use the men's loo, but I don't feel safe there. Why aren't we saying to men, you need to be tolerant of these men who think they're women?
Never has been. Never has been.
Why do we have to be the ones to be their gatekeepers?
Because it's always been women that suffer. I mean, I have got 3 daughter-in-laws who are very ambitious and stuff like that. Anyway, why is it us, the women, who always have to do this? Us, the women, who always have to do that? And I went, well, it's always been that way. And I feel so sorry I really feel for women in today's world, because why shouldn't we be ambitious? Why shouldn't we do stuff? We should be protected. It's absolute, and it's getting worse. It really is getting worse. Honestly, it's getting worse.
Oh, I know.
Because of woke, because of political correctness. You know, I went into a school last year where, I mean, and I've been doing this job for 23 years, and I was invited to go to the a diversity room. And I thought, ooh, and this is like early last year. And then I went and I thought, ooh, well, okay, fine. And all these kids are wearing pronoun badges. And I went, what? I mean, and to me, and I've been in this business for 23 years, I thought, what the hell is going on? And this boy came up to me and said, you know, I was Lucas, but now I'm Lucy. I went, lovely, darling, but I won't remember your name. Honestly, if I was
still doing this, because the way I see it, right, if you're over 18 and you're a man who happens to think you're a woman, you've got a mental illness. If you're under 18 and you're a boy who happens to think you're a girl, your mum's got a mental illness. That's the way I see it. Dysphoria is a psychological condition. Treat it as such.
I think the trouble is
most of it isn't even dysphoria. Most of it is just trend and fetish.
I think it's worse than that. You've got primary schools that are now saying to 5 or 6-year-olds that come in, darling, you might be Jane, but you might feel you're John today. We won't tell mummy, here's a toilet for you where anyone can be anyone. I mean, these are 5 and 6-year-olds, and I am not joking. If I honestly, truly now, if I was now, I've got 4 kids, 8 grandchildren, blah, blah. If I was a new mum now, frankly, I would homeschool because I would not want my children subjected to this total nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a few people who may believe, and truly I do believe that, they are in the wrong body. I do not believe you've got 3 or 4 in every single classroom across the UK.
It's vanishingly rare.
Brainwashing. It's brainwashing.
It's brainwashing, and it's child abuse. And this is the other thing. When you look at the statistics on this,
it is child abuse.
Back in
You're
the day,
absolutely right.
people with gender dysphoria, it's like 0.03% of the entire population, right? Now, all of a sudden, like you said, it's like 7 girls in a classroom. Once upon a time, gender dysphoria was almost exclusively a male condition. Didn't really happen with women. You had tomboys, you had your, your butch lesbians or whatever, but they didn't suddenly want to actually, start having mastectomies and things like that.
It's crazy, but even now, I have been in schools where I've seen 7-year-olds that say, "I'm a cat today."
Gosh.
And they scratch and they spit at the teacher. It's like going into a farmyard. Some kids are going, "Oh, I feel I'm a cow today. Moo." I mean, go home and be. If you feel like that's what you are, you go home and do it. But when you're in school, you learn maths, English, language, and social skills. Take those other ideologies home and let your parents deal with it, but you don't bring it into school. I tell you what, honestly, truly, I would not exist in education today with the craziness that's going on in this world. And what I also don't understand is why parents are not allowed to see the ideology that's being taught in schools.
Yeah.
It's wrong. We've now got primary schools where if you think you're non-binary, you can insist that you are called MX, MX. You should not be subjecting to little children to that sort of situation. They need to read and speak properly and do maths and socialize properly. How many, I'll tell you what, since COVID, the number of schools I go in where reception teachers have had enormously aggressive children that they've never seen before since COVID. Sort that out, because that's our future, and I dread to think what life is going to be like 15 years from now.
I think we've got to peak woke, Marilyn. I really do. I kind of think that something's happened and we're turning the corner and the madness is going to end. Because I'll tell you what, if it ain't, come 2029, our next Prime Minister will be a gimp mask being led to a dispatch box on a leash, at which point he's got to cock his leg against it.
I have a horrible feeling you could be right, but this is, without a doubt, it's child abuse. You are programming children's mind, because I think, I am not a political animal. I can't bear politicians, but I do feel there's something going on here that's deeper than what we see, which is about social engineering. I really do think they're trying to bring so much stuff in. I don't trust it. There's something beyond our own intelligence that is deeply worrying. And where's it coming from?
Do you know what?
Why is it happening?
Marilyn, you've touched upon one of my favourite little tinfoil hat wormholes here, my darling. Let me enlighten you as to some of the things that I've been reading, which is essentially, especially if you follow the money, right? If you follow the money in America and the people, the philanthropists, as they always call themselves, who are chucking a load of cash money at the LGBTQ plus, whatever they are, charities. When you look at who these people are, they sit on the board of big pharmaceutical companies, they sit on the board of big .com companies, and for these people, the more that we are avatarized as human beings, the more that our physical reality is less important and we have a world that is entirely online, the more that we are an economic unit for them. It suits pharmaceutical companies a great amount to be pumping people with hormones and doing surgeries and then pumping people with more medicines to reverse the damage the hormones have done and then reverse the surgeries. Makes them a heck of a lot of money, and it really, really suits as well our friends in Silicon Valley if everyone can make believe that they're not what they really are in the real world, but live this virtual existence.
Try and take on the pharma industry. They are big bully boys. You can't, even in the surgeries, there's audits that are done on GPs as to how many prescriptions you did that day, or that week or whatever, because they are making a mint out of us.
I'll tell you what else as well. All of this cosmetic surgery, because I've always thought about those Kardashians. They don't do anything. They don't sing. They don't act. They don't play sport.
Influencers. They're influencers, my dear.
No, they've literally been made on an operating table. And they're also, so this is the thing about the Kardashians. Number one, they're made on an operating table for the male gaze. Number two, they're all racially ambiguous, aren't they? They've got a look that you could adopt if you're in Saudi Arabia Arabia or Senegal or Southampton. And I think a lot of them have also quite purposefully gone down the route of having mixed-race babies as well. And then, oh, quelle surprise, look, all of a sudden the Kardashians appear, and one of the biggest boom industries is all of these cosmetic implants, butt implants, lip implants, all of that stuff. Then all of a sudden, guess who pops up as Woman of the Year? Oh, it just so happens that the dad happens to be trans. Would you believe it? And then now what they're doing is they're pushing all of these reversals. They're like, we're going to go for the natural look, so everyone's got to buy a shed load of products to remove their implants.
I tell you what, I am not sorry to be the age I am. I've had 4 kids. I've just been away with my family of 4 children and their partners and my grandchildren, 18 of us. We've all gone, and I just look at them and I think, my dear darlings, what is life going to be for you in 10 years' time? And I probably won't be here. And I am not sorry to be the age I am, because the world has gone bonkers. And something is behind this. And I swear it's social engineering. Everybody now has got to be brown. We can't be white anymore. Nobody's got to be all mixing in. There's a thing going on behind the scenes and I don't.
There's definitely a sort of vilification of sort of, you know, the Anglo-Saxons, let's say.
Yeah, but it is child abuse. This is child abuse to start staining. And what gets me, what annoys me is if I had my child at school now and I was told, oh, this happens, believe me. Oh, this person's going to come in and they're done up like a pantomime dame, and they're talking to your 6-year-old about LGBTQ. I would take my child out. I would want to know what sort of education regarding sex education, sort of relationships, PHSE. I was a deputy head. I wouldn't allow someone like that in my school. I'd want to see the material and want to see the reading books. Parents are not allowed to complain. But me, I would. I'd take my kid out and I'd be banging outside and I'd get the local press in, because that's what I've done before, and I would shame that school. But you're also talking not just of ordinary primary schools, but Church of England primary schools.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know.
It's outrageous. And where are the faith leaders?
Where are the adults? Where are the adults in charge of safeguarding? Marilyn.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
they don't give a damn. That's the problem. They don't give a damn. They're more worried about their income.
Right, so there is, you know, you are right about something. There's something very funny going on, but I do hope that we've kind of hit the peak of it all, and we're going to go back in the opposite direction. In about 10, 20, 30 years' time, people are going to look back at what my generation did and went, you were some messed up mofos. Marilyn, thank you ever so much. Brilliant to have you on the programme, speaking so passionately and candidly. And it's your turn now, if you want to speak passionately and candidly and vent a little bit of your frustration, get a few things off the old chest, join a bit of communal catharsis, have some free therapy on Talk Towers. The number to call is 0344 499 1000. Agony Aunt Alex is here ready to take your call. It's your normal network rates. It's basically free, isn't it? You can also use that number to send me a WhatsApp message or leave me a voice note on WhatsApp. 87222 is the number if you would like to text me. If you're going to do that, you've got to write the word talk before your text, otherwise it does something that it shouldn't do. We're also on X at talkTV. Now, I've given you all the handles and numbers and digits. I expect to hear something from you, so go on. Chop, chop. Back after this.
unveiled this morning was the most radical immigration policy in British history. And that will set the debate now for weeks and months and possibly years to come. I'm pretty immersed in this stuff. I know how radical reform wants to be. I was really impressed by just how far he is pledging to go. I mean, what he's talking about here, deporting hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants, is a massive undertaking.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back. Shall we take some of your calls? First up is Fatima, who's in Rotherham. Hello there, Fatima.
Hello, Alex. Hi. So basically, I just want to talk about the assumptions that you make a lot of the time on your radio station about migrants, especially migrant men, especially when you've just did it so casually before they get phones and they get this, which is not true, by the way. I work with asylum seekers. I'm an ESOL teacher, and they struggle, and they are going through hard time, and they are not living this luxury life that this radio and other platforms are saying. That's the first thing. The second thing, by you constantly making racist assumptions that migrant men, which are men of colour, are some perverts or something like that, is absolutely ridiculous. Because
Hold on.
No. You make this all the time. And
Yeah,
I'm a woman of colour, okay? Yeah. I'm a Muslim woman, and I can tell you for sure there's plenty of white men that are perverts as well, and I'm sure a lot of...
Oh, I know that. Don't you worry about that, Fatima. I definitely agree with plenty of white men are perverts as well.
What you're doing is causing division.
Okay, so hold on. Let's unpack this. First of all, I'm not talking about race because I'm not talking about a particular race, am I? I'm talking about a culture. I'm talking about men from countries which have a very different approach to attitudes towards women.
No. This is the current climate now. This is the current climate. The sky is blue. Yes, the sky is blue. No, those times are finished now. All this rhetoric and all this narrative is building division.
Hold on, no, I'll tell you what's building division. I'll tell you what's... Look, Fatima, hear me out. How is it, right? So I'm a woman who's just left living in London, okay? You're a fellow woman. Now, when I walked down the street in London, I used to get harassed, leered at, bothered, approached incessantly by men who were not born and bred in England, exclusively by men who are not born and bred in England. Now, is this just something weird happening in my life? Am I not allowed to tell you that I've experienced that?
There's lots of other women who've had the same treatment by men of not that race, okay? So what you need to understand is you're an intelligent woman. You cannot be thinking like this, honestly.
So, Fatima, do you get harassed by men?
Racial assumption. There's nothing inherently perverse about men of colour. Bad men.
It's not about men of colour, Fatima. I don't care about the colour of someone's skin. I don't give a fiddle.
To abuse women. No race, okay? It's just bad men.
But yeah, okay, I don't. Okay.
Keep making
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this because I actually think this is a very valuable conversation for us to have.
It is dividing our country, and I urge more people to stand up against this racism.
Fatima, can I ask you some questions? Because I'd like to take your. I want to ask you some questions. Right. So first, of all, I just want to make something clear. I don't give a hoot about the colour of someone's skin. I really don't give a fig. What I care about.
Other horrible things that are happening to women that are not by migrant men,
Okay, let's get back. I was going to ask you some questions. Right, I was going to ask you some questions, Fatima, because I think this could be end up being quite an interesting discussion. So first of all, let's make it. I don't care about the colour of someone's skin at all. I've lived all over the world. I don't care.
And a lot of people don't believe it. With all the
okay, but I'm telling you because I know what goes on in my own head better than you do. I don't care about the colour of someone's skin. That is a statement of fact. What I do care about is the content of someone's character. Now, the content of someone's character is largely influenced by how they were brought up. And I want to ask you this: as somebody who's lived around the world and worked.
Muslims. You're constantly demonising Muslims. Where are all the great things that Muslims are doing, like myself? Why don't you showcase that?
Well, I want to ask you some questions, Fatima. I'm showcasing you right now, my darling.
Constantly. London.
Do you want me to ask you some interesting questions or not? Or are you just going to yell at me? Because that's not an interesting conversation, is it? Fatima.
Alex, let me tell you something. I got attacked by 2 young white men. You know, I got attacked the other day. And
I'm sorry to hear that. That's horrible.
I stood up for myself. And guess what? It was a lovely white man who came to my rescue.
Good.
The colour doesn't matter.
I know the colour doesn't matter. I've literally just said that myself. But Fatima, I've got to put this to you, Fatima. Fatima, I've got to put this to you because we've got to base what we're talking about in reality. When men are coming from countries where if a man, look, I can tell by your accent, Fatima, that you, I would imagine, were born and raised here because you've got a lovely Yorkshire twang to your voice, a very beautiful, lovely accent you have too. So I'm going to assume you're born and raised here. But say there's a guy who's been born and raised in a particular part of the world, right, where women are oppressed, where he has been told...
That's where you're wrong. Do you travel the world? Do you get out of UK?
Yes, I've lived in Ghana, I've lived in India, I've lived in Kenya, I've lived in China, I've worked in Nigeria, I've worked in Pakistan. I've actually probably been to more places on this planet than you have, my darling.
Narrow few. There are bad people.
Now, can we just have this conversation? Let's go back. Fatima, let's go back to what I was trying to ask you because you're not winning the conversation right now. I wanted to ask you a sensible question. Now, can you...
Do you know how we get treated in parts of Yorkshire? I have to run to the train. I have to run. I'm so scared.
I'm sorry to hear that. You should not have to live that life at all, Fatima. Right?
You've had an experience in London. Guess what? I've had experience in Yorkshire.
I'm not denying that you have. I'm sure you have some pretty horrible experiences. Life ain't easy for women.
I'm trying to get you to understand.
Okay, so I want to ask you a question. Fatima, I want to ask you a question, okay? Take a deep breath and answer this question, okay? If there is a man who happens to have been brought up, I don't care whether he's blue, pink, yellow, purple or polka dot, but he's being brought up being told, right, that women not of his faith are not worthy and shameful, that a woman has to cover their entire body and their face or they're bringing shame unto their family, that a woman shouldn't leave the house without a male escort.
You're talking to a Muslim woman.
I know, so this is why I'm asking you. This is why I think your insight might be quite useful. You're saying to me, go out there and ask questions, so that's what I'm doing.
Educating. Do you have Muslim friends that cover their intelligence? Do you have Muslim women friends? Beautiful Muslim friends? I don't think you do. I think you need to go out there and make.
Mate, I've been working in Pakistan. One of my best mates from Ghana is called Rashida. I've plenty of Muslim friends, my love. But what I'm asking, I'll tell you what, I've travelled so far around the world, Fatima, that I've seen it with my own eyes. And I've seen how women are treated in Pakistan. I have seen how women are treated in Morocco because I have been to those countries a lot. So I've seen it. I don't have to invent this stuff. I've seen it with my own eyes. And I've also seen news reports of how they treat women in Afghanistan. It don't look very nice to me. So what I'm asking you, if men have been brought up to think that that's the way to treat women and they come to this country, is it not likely that they might bring some of those viewpoints with them? If these men are refugees fleeing these tyrannical regimes, what does it say about those tyrannical regimes? They're hardly heaven sent, are they? These are hardly the moral guardians of the universe, are they, if they're lobbing stones at women for adultery?
Can I just go back to the covering bit? We need to educate ourselves on hijab. Hijab is an honour. Hijab is modesty. Hijab is
modesty. Okay, what do you mean by modesty then? Is it bad? Is it bad I've got my hair out right now, Fatima?
Badge of honour.
Is it a bad thing I've got my hair out?
Badge of honour.
I want to ask you a question. Is it a bad thing that I've got my hair out?
Because I think more Muslim women need to phone in and smash.
I'm asking you a question. Is it a bad thing that I've got my hair out?
Absolutely not. It's your choice.
Okay, well, good. But do you think there are people who think that it is a bad thing I've got my hair out? Because that's what I'm saying. You might think that way, Fatima, and I'm a girl's girl.
and I will defend you to the hilt. And if anyone came and messed with my Fatima, I'd be the first person to give them a sock in the face, because I stand up for women, and you shouldn't have to be running for the train or having anything bad happening to you because of the way you choose to live your life. And it's the same for me, Fatima. The same rights to safety and freedom need to be accorded to me as well. So just as much as anybody who comes and harasses you and makes you feel unsafe and insecure because you might be wearing a hijab or might be visibly Muslim, and that is not on, the same is true for a man who sees my blonde hair and the fact that it's not covered up and thinks therefore they can treat me how they want to and make me feel safe and insecure. So Fatima, it goes both ways, doesn't it?
And their race is insignificant. That's the point I'm trying to bring home to you. Their religion, these are bad men. We know.
I know they are, but they exist, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people over here right now in our capital city who treat women badly.
Come on, Alex. You know what low-value men is? They come in different colours. We need to think better than this. There are good Muslim men who will look down on the ground. Do you know what Islam says? Lower your gaze. Islam says lower your gaze. That's what it says in the Quran. Lower your gaze, draw down your veils, be modest, lower your gaze. Okay? These men that are harassing you, and I'm sorry if you've had that, they are men that haven't been taught how to honor themselves, first of all, and honor women, and that means lower your gaze. That is Islam in a nutshell. So I'm calling in today to just smash these little assumptions you have of you put Muslim and immigrants and as though it's the gospel, you know what I mean? That this is it. No, it's not it. It's not it. There are bad men everywhere. These men.
I get that there are bad men everywhere, Fatima, but unfortunately the statistics are proving increasingly that we are letting an unworldly number of men who don't seem to share your values and my values, which are very similar values, and there's too many of them now in Great Britain, and we need to start taking that seriously. But I really do appreciate your call and your time. It's been very interesting speaking to you, Fatima. Right, we're going to take a little break now before we go back to calls. That was an interesting old chit-chat, but I'm really glad Fatima called up. It's important to have these conversations, and I think the point has to be made that Fatima, if Fatima wants to live freely as a Muslim woman, she absolutely should be able to. I don't condone the old niqab thing. I think that's just awful. I think making eye contact is very important in life, and I think it's quite intimidating, and I don't think that is in Western values. But if Fatima wants to wear a hijab, fine. Do it. I don't care. And she shouldn't have to live uncomfortably because of that. But in the same way that if I don't wear one, neither should I. Right? That's at the crux of all of it. All right, let's have a little break now and take some more calls when I'm back.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
All right then. Some of you have a lot of comments to make about previous conversation. Look, I'm glad Fatima phoned. I like Fatima. I'm going to support Fatima in all this. It takes bravery to, step up and say what we have to say. And look, it is important. I don't want Fatima's life
to be any more uncomfortable than I want any woman's life to be uncomfortable. And, you know, there are racists. There are people who, unfortunately, are knuckle-dragging bozos who will see a woman in a hijab and treat that person despicably. And they think they're big and they're smart and clever and on the side of right in doing that. No, you're not. Anybody who bullies, mistreats, harasses, intimidates a woman is a monster. And I don't care about colour of skin. I don't care race. And Fatima's right. There are plenty of good men in this world from all creeds and cultures who need to champion women, and more men need to stand up and defend women. If that's you, if you've seen a young girl being harassed the other side of the road or being followed and you've turned a blind eye, check yourself before you call yourself a man. But no, I'm going to look. People have said things about Fatima. I'm like, no, I like Fatima. I'm very, very proud of her. I'm delighted that she called up. Okay, so good on Fatima, and I would go to the ends of the earth for that girl. I'd defend that girl until my dying breath because I'm for the sisterhood. Okay, righto. Let's speak to Alison, who's in Buckinghamshire. Hi there, Alison.
Oh, Alex, it's so lovely to see you. You know that. And you know, I was thinking today, God, I haven't seen her on telly for ages, and then you come on. That was so weird, but it's lovely to see you anyway.
Oh, you wouldn't want to see me the last 2 weeks. I looked like I had biblical leprosy. You'd have probably retched at the sight of me.
Moving house, forget. Don't even go there. We'll move on that one. But anyway, you say you like Fatima. I don't like Fatima. I'm sorry, I have to say. I'm in a Muslim relationship, and it's not how she says it is at all. And I've been with my partner for 9 years, yeah, and the abuse that we have both got from his family for being together, and it's still going on. 9 years, still doing it. Even today, actually, he said to him, you never listen to me, you're living in sin. I can't park on the drive, I have to park down the road.
So is this your other half?
Yeah.
Why are you still in a relationship with him then?
Because he's lovely to me. He's so good to me. He's the best partner I've ever had.
But he don't let you park on the drive?
No, his family.
Oh, his family. Oh, sorry, I'm being a bit of a blonde moment there. So his family basically treat you like you're a second-class citizen?
Oh, gosh, yeah. And, like, his dad wants me to convert, and I don't want to convert because of the abuse that I've received from them over the years. And the thing is like, because this is where this lady is wrong. Okay, it doesn't, you know, if you're in a Muslim culture, it doesn't matter. They are controlled in some way. You know, my partner knows so much about it. And, like, you know, he is not a practicing Muslim because he doesn't agree with the way women are treated because they are not respected. You know,
I mean, one thing that Fatima was saying is she kept saying, oh, you know, the crux of Islam, the most important thing is the modesty. Men are told to avert your gaze, avert your gaze. I don't think that's a good thing. I think that's quite dystopian and creepy if you're like, don't look at the woman, don't look at her. What's that kind of set? I mean, it's just... That sort of is suggesting that, you know, we can't be treated on an equal basis. You know, you can look at a man in the eyes and talk to him, but don't look at a woman. I'm like, I actually don't like that.
Well, no, it's the problem is because the Muslim culture, I find, I mean, my partner's lovely. I've got no problem with him at all. But they don't want they don't, what's the word? How can I say it? It's like... You know, they've got their culture and they want everyone else to be in it. They're not prepared to share the values that we offer because they don't agree with how we are in the Western country, the way the women are. You know, like you say, if we're not covered up, we're looked at as sluts and we're treated like sluts. And that's it. And that's the way they see it.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's definitely light and shade in all of this. You know, that I would say because... I think that there is something fundamentally that comes from their teachings which isn't in line with Western values. Okay, so there is a fundamental, you know, a line in the sand with all of this. But there are ways that people adopt and go about their practice, let's say. And certainly that, you know, when I lived in the Muslim neighbourhood called Darkuman of Accra, I had a perfectly fine time. No issues there, really. Didn't particularly enjoy living in, working in Pakistan. That was pretty grim. Look at Dubai. People have a right old time over there, all going around and they're tottering in their high heels, safe as houses. So there is a sort of, there's light and shade to all of this, for sure. And certainly, you know, when Fatima's like, I bet you don't have any Muslim friends. I'm like, mate, you don't know me.
Oh, God, exactly. I mean, I'm in a you know, we have to, I mean, what we've been through, for them to try and separate us, we shouldn't be together.
Oh.
There isn't any, you know, any way. I don't think a lot
Is
of
your other
couples
half
would
is
have
still a
lasted.
practicing Muslim?
No, he's not. 'Cause he doesn't agree with it.
Oh, right. So he's sort of an ex-Muslim.
Yeah, he doesn't believe in the controlling way of the culture. You know, he can't, you know, be in his own family's house for 5 minutes because they're on it. It is so. I don't understand it. It's all control. Everything is control. Who's in charge? Money and control. Women are just. I'm sorry, but I've seen it and I know it. I've heard it from Muslim women themselves. You know, they have arranged marriages. They don't know each other, so they can't love each other. And the minute they're married, you know, they're having children. You know, there's no connection like in the Western way. You meet someone and you develop a relationship to see if it's right or not before you commit yourself. And every time I look I've always said this, you know, and I feel sorry for them. I never see a Muslim woman walking around the streets, and I don't go out much anymore because it's not safe, but they're never smiling. You never see them laughing. You never see them having a joke. None of that, just a straight face, walking straight ahead.
I think it must depend on, you know, there are common denominators to things, but there is so much variety in this world. You know, when I think about people like Benazir Bhutto, who went on to be the first female prime minister of Pakistan, or you know, I think about my Ghanaian friend Rashida. She's an absolute boss. I mean, she is like whoa on the game, making her money. She's awesome. When she comes to the hilarious thing about Rashida, when she's in Ghana, she's got the hijab on and looks pious as anything. She comes to London and whack off it goes, and she wants to go out nightclubbing. But anyway. That's why she's cool. But you know, if people want to follow religion, if they want to be austere, if they want to live like an ascetic, I mean, I'm all for like do what you like, but it's when that encroaches on other people. Okay, when it encroaches, and this my argument has been in the same way that no one should bother Fatima if she wants to wear a hijab, no one should bother me if I don't, and that's
exactly. I mean,
that's
like,
when it becomes a problem.
When I first met his parents, and they were saying about me getting married to him and stuff, and I'm thinking, whoa, wait a minute. And his dad said to him, you will be mine, and you won't be dressing like you are now. I said, well, I'm not marrying him, because if he wanted to marry a Muslim person, he could quite easily do that. He didn't want someone like that. And if I convert, I'm not the person he met. So, you know, and I don't agree with it because it's so controlling. You're so restricted, you know, and it's just, I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it. The abuse that have come out of their mouth is astonishing. I just can't even get my head around it, and there's no need for it. And the thing is, it's all because I'm not, you know, I was a mental health nurse for 13 years. I worked with all sorts of cultures. I'm not like that. What I don't agree with is when you come into our country and you're trying to put pressure on us British citizens to go into your culture, and if we don't do that, it's going to be a nightmare. And that's exactly what's happening. You know, we're all in this together.
Yeah. No, look, I totally agree. Alison, it's been so fascinating talking to you, my darling, and well done to you and your other half and sort of getting through those 9 years. That must be a really, really solid, brilliant relationship with all the adversity that you've faced. And that to me sounds like true love, and you're very lucky to have found it. Can I just say, a little bit jealous, if we're gonna be honest. Wouldn't it be nice to have a man who's that dedicated to you? Anyway, Alison, thank you so much for your call. Let's speak now to Herbie, who's in Harrow. Hi, Herbie.
Yes, good evening, Alex. Fatima's a bit of a fiery one, isn't she?
Oh, she's got some spine, that one. Good girl.
Well, everybody's got their opinions on things. The thing is, though, Alex, is that to talk about immigration isn't racist. It's been realistic, because if we talk about immigration, we can then see what the problems are and what it's bringing to us. I've used an example, and it's a quite simple one. It's like this. I've lived in a village for many, many years. At the bottom of the village, there was a stream. The stream was flowing for God knows how long. All of a sudden, it has a flood, which I can't control, and it's come and flooded the village. This is exactly what is happening with immigration now coming over into this country. We can't control it, and it puts us under problems, and it makes the pressure even worse than what it already is.
And I don't know why we have to play this make-believe game that everybody's identical in the world and all have the same culture and all have equal value and all deserve the same level of respect from us, when it's quite clear that there's huge diversity out there in the world. You can't turn around and say people are fleeing a god-awful country of god-awful people in it, and then turn around and say, but you can't say that country is god-awful with god-awful values. I mean, just... You can't square that circle, can you?
No, Alex, the problem is that we live in a world that has got all sorts of issues and problems. Religion is certainly one of the biggest problems that we see to face with wars and issues and all sorts of things. I respect anybody. Look, I don't care what your religion is. Don't convert me, I won't convert you. I will respect your religion. If you want me to take my shoes off, wear a hat or whatever, I've got no problems with that. I've always done it, and I respect it. But don't convert me. I'm not really interested. I believe what you believe in, you believe in. That's your choice, like my choice. Yeah. Then we can live in harmony. But don't put the pressure on me, and I won't put the pressure on you.
Yeah. Well, no, this is exactly it. As someone who has lived and worked around the world a heck of a lot, one of my favourite places to go to is Marrakesh. I love a bit of Marrakesh. I love going down the souks. I love Moroccan cooking. It's my favourite food in the world. I love the smell of orange blossom in the air. Bit of oud. Oh my gosh, I adore Marrakesh, so much so that I go about every year. But I'll tell you what, that is not a great place to be a woman, because when I go to Marrakesh, the last time I went with my boyfriend, we got separated in the souks for all of about 10 metres, and someone came and grabbed in between my legs. I wouldn't dare go to Marrakesh by myself, I tell you that much. And when I go there, I am wearing a dress all the way down to the feet. I've got a neckline up to my collarbones. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going around in hot pants and a bikini, even if it is 37 degrees. Because it's just pragmatism. That is called reality. The fact that we're constantly told to not live in the world of the real, or not use words, use proper labels for things. The fact that we're not allowed to pattern seek anymore when human existence and survival is based upon it. If 5 times I walk down a particular street and get mugged, then in my head I go, oh, that street is dangerous. It's called pattern forming. It's called actually being a bit risk averse, using common sense, using empirical evidence and data. The fact that we're constantly told that we got to mortgage all of that to sate what? Just some people not being offended. I'm offended all the time. The things people say about me, handmaiden to the far right thug, Nazi Barbie, that one who scratches all the time. Guess what? I'm a grown-up. Say what you like. I don't lose any sleep over it. And, the idea that we actually have to get to a stage now where we're actually sacrificing the integrity and safety of girls so as not to offend full-grown men who should know better, come on. That doesn't say much about the men, does it? Herbie, thank you ever so much for your call. Let's take a final break, but don't go anywhere, because hopefully more of your messages and more of your calls after this.
It's not just UCL.
When this first started in Epping, is that if they closed that hotel, this was policy collapse. Because it was kind of the lightning rod. This was one hotel and it has now spread. And unfortunately, the government is without a clue. And how they will push forward, we were just saying that we've got to have to hope that they've got these new centres going. But the amount that they're going to have to build and kind of renovate to get going is nowhere near ready. This is one of the reasons I think that they're really hoping to kind of drag out a legal case. But honestly, I do not know what they're going to do.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello. Right, I'm going to read out this message because it is... Well, I'm just going to read it. So someone's messaged, anonymous, saying, I called the police to tell them there was a man harassing blonde women. Nothing happened, but then he started to harass me. I got onto a bus and he followed me, still harassing me. He then dropped his trousers, exposing himself to all on the bus, including children. I phoned the police again. They told me to get off at the next stop and they would meet me. He tried to stop me getting off the bus and spat in my face and he ran off. But the police dog found him. He had to go to hospital. Shame. Good dog. Well, that wasn't me that says that in the message. I gave a statement and there was CCTV from the bus. The next day I was told he was an Arab who'd been drinking and did not know what he was doing. I was 35. I feel so sorry for the young girls today. That sounds alarmingly similar to my own Samara's story when she got the bus and a madman was basically trying to hold her hostage on the bus. A locally known rapist. Yay! How great. What life is like in London. I mean, it's testimonies like this. The other thing is, right, if you say to a man, when I walk down the street, X, Y, and Z happens, they don't see this because if they're walking with you, the creeps and the perverts don't come and harass you if you're with a man. Not really. Although I did read a brilliant post on X the other day of someone who's like, I used to be a massive pro-immigration wokatron, and when I walk about with my missus, I see the way they leer at her and follow her with their eyes, and I don't like it. And I'm like, wow, even the leftists are getting it now. But by and large, men don't see this because the weirdos and the perverts and the leches go for you when you're by yourself. So it's sort of like one of those things. And some women, look, I hate to say it, some women don't see it either. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you look like a sort of badly done Picasso painting that's eaten one too many fruitcakes, you're probably not going to get followed down the streets by a lech. So there are some people to whom the sort of things I'm talking about, they've never seen it, they've never experienced, and they never will. Anyway, let's speak now to Emily, who's calling from Reading. Good evening, Emily.
Hi. We just wanted to discuss the side of this issue, and we think it's actually incredibly racist to blame one negative thing that affects so many young women in the UK on one group of people, and it just marginalises and generalises a group of people to only label these people. So we're only discussing migrants.
Hold on, who are these? Okay, who are these people?
So you're discussing migrants, yes?
Well, amongst many other topics, but yeah. Right, that's talking about men who come from cultures where they're misogynistic, inherently misogynistic, still being misogynists when they come to Britain.
Right, but are we not going to face the fact that many misogynists are bred in Britain and that our British values also...
Yeah. Oh, I'm with you on that. Did you, if you'd been listening to the whole show, you'd have heard me do my rant about things like pornography and user-generated content in pornography and the dreadful stereotypes of women and the fact that women are just not safe anymore in a hypersexualized society. So I'm with you all the way on that one.
No, I absolutely agree that pornography is a really big issue in society, especially with young women. But we're really not focusing in on the fact that in 2024, 84% of sexual assault perpetrators were white men.
Well, we live in a predominantly white country, so you'd imagine the statistics would bear out the fact that a majority of people who have committed offences would be of the big majority section of society. But actually, what the statistics do show is there's a huge disproportionate overrepresentation of men from other countries, which actually far outweighs the ratio of the percentage of the population that they make up. And this is borne out in statistics.
Yes, but you're only negatively, well, obviously, focusing on the 16%. And I understand that there's a majority issue here, obviously, and that not everyone can be equally represented. But I really think portraying migrants, some of which, majority actually, are from third world countries, that we...
Oh, you can't say third world. That's not politically correct, my friend. It's the developing world.
Right, okay. But if we look at it, the reason that we have so many people from these countries is the UK's fault. Because with Tony Blair's government, which was absolutely disastrous, committing war crimes in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, we forced these people out of the country and we forced them to come here.
Okay, so are we not going to blame the Ba'ath Party at all?
Pardon?
Are we not going to blame the Ba'ath Party for their role in this?
There are too many people to blame in this, but the fact that we're portraying...
Do you know what the Ba'ath Party is?
Can you...
Do you know what the Ba'ath Party is?
Can you explain?
OK, so that was Saddam Hussein's party. So I think when you're talking about Britain's fault for what happened in Iraq, you're kind of not really understanding the full story. If you don't know what the Ba'ath Party is, I suggest you go and do a little Wikipedia search on what was going on in Iraq. Look, I don't like Alistair Campbell or Tony Blair. I'm the first person to tell you that I'm not supportive of their antics on the international stage. But I'm afraid at this point in life, this self-flagellation that it's all Britain's fault is just moronic, my love. Doesn't even make sense.
No, but the fact that we're villainising these people, when ultimately it was also partially our fault. And of course, those countries...
Is it your fault? What have you done? What have you done, Emily? What's your fault? What have you done?
Right. It's... Oh, my God. No, what I'm saying here is that actually women are treated horribly everywhere. We can't avoid that.
Well, we should fight against it, though, shouldn't we? We should do what we can to make sure women aren't treated horribly. That's what I stand for, and I hope you do too. Emily, one day when you're my age and you've had enough of the rubbish that we have to tolerate, you might find your views changing a little bit. But thank you ever so much for calling. It has been wonderful having a conversation with such a young and vibrant woman. Here's a... also young and vibrant.
Oh, I was wondering where you were going to go with that. You were either going to go with the older one, knowing what rubbish we put up with, or the young one. But thank you.